Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Bristol Town Council meeting of April 17th. If you could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We have a really busy meeting this evening. But we're going to pause right in the beginning to recognize actually more than a few Bristolians who've achieved greatness. And the first that I speak of is the Monohope Gymnastics team. I have a couple of highlights that I'm going to read, but I think that Coach Nicole will share the rest of it. Mount Hope Gymnastics team ended their season undefeated. Yes, undefeated, 10-0 record, winning Division I title. And we're going to stop right there and give you a round of applause. So this is the coach, Nicole Danello.
Yes.
Nicole, could you share that road to success?
Yes. Before I do that, can I just thank Mrs. Davis for acknowledging and bringing this championship to your attention and letting us be recognized tonight. If it wasn't for her, we wouldn't be here. And she's been so supportive over the years of all of the Mount Hope athletics, and even when it was Bristol High School. I remember her from when I was a student there and an athlete. So I just so appreciate her and all that she does for this town, for this community, and for the school. So thank you, Mrs. Davis.
We agree.
So the road to success. Well, so this is my fourth year coaching Mount Hope Gymnastics team as a head coach. And this was our fourth state championship. We were in Division II the last 3 years. And then this year we were in Division I for the first time. In, I believe it was 2000, the league went to 2 divisions. So we were all 1 before that, and then went to Division I and II, and we were in Division II at that point. So this is the first year in 18 years that we were in Division I, and we won. So that was
wonderful.
Quite the accomplishment. Yeah, they did a really good job. I also have 3 seniors who made All-State honors this year. And my 5 all-arounders were in the top 9 at the state championship. So that's an incredible feat. So Jamie Foreman and Megan Oliver received first-team all-state honors for that. And senior Katie Quinn and 2 freshmen, Nora Prendergast and Reese Pavo, also made second-team all-state honors at the state championship. So really good. We were also the Showcase Team of the Week, and I believe it was Miss Christy Belial who nominated us, and it was not just for our undefeated season, but the way the girls have always come together, supported each other, encouraged each other. The way they cheered for each other at meets was remarkable. Teachers would come to our meets and they would comment on it, how loud they would cheer for each other, and how you could really see the respect that they had for each other, and that just speaks volumes to their character and just what a wonderful team they are. So, yeah.
It's absolutely tremendous. What I have here is a citation that states exactly that congratulations on your achievement on Division I. But we also have a citation for each and every team member. And this council, and we get to speak for the town, so the town of Bristol says, congratulations. It's absolutely outstanding. Could all of you come up so everybody can see you at home over here, and I will give you one of these. I know you're thinking you didn't know you were going to do that, right? So
Thank you.
Come on up. Let's give them all a big round of applause, please. Oh, yeah. Absolutely outstanding job. Yeah, so that way they can't see us, and that's good because they can see you. Anytime they get to look at somebody else, right? So, and Coach Nicole, I have this citation for you and for the whole team. So, one more time, can we have a round of applause for all of them?
Well done.
Of course, thanks.
You can make the rounds if you want.
Yeah, you can say, absolutely.
You can do that. You can do that.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Congrats. Congrats.
Nice job.
Awesome.
Nice job.
Congratulations.
Going to West Virginia now? You have fun in Charleston. Charlestown? Oregon. All right, you're going to be a mountaineer.
Very nice.
Congratulations.
You spelled everybody's name.
Congratulations.
Yeah, you only get to go around once.
Yeah, just once. It felt like a wedding reception line, didn't it? Just a little bit. So.
Never again. They survived. Man, animals.
Thanks, everyone. So we're not done with congratulations. We have a gentleman here this evening who most of you know his face. A lot of you know his photos and his words in the paper. I speak of Manny Coria. And tonight we are celebrating his success as a citation for the Honorable Administrator and Town Council in the state of Rhode Island Province Plantations, on behalf of the citizens of the town of Bristol, consider Mr. Coria's remarkable 60 years of work as a journalist and a photographer. Manny, where are you? Can you come up? Come on over here so we can see you, please. Right up to the podium, if you would. And Mrs. Coria, you're here too. You have to just stay on the side. So Manny, 60 years of work as a journalist and a photographer in the service to many readers on his beloved Bristol and beyond, to continue to enjoy his words and pictures every day. So Manny won the Words Unlimited, he was inducted to the Words Unlimited Hall of Fame, which is an impressive honor. And Manny, could you just share a little bit more about that?
Words Unlimited is an organization of sports writers, sports broadcasters, and sports publicists in the state of Rhode Island. It's generally regarded as the most prestigious organization of its type in the state. So I was lucky enough to be nominated and inducted into this great group last month. I've been in the business a long time. Councilman Texera can certainly vouch for that, and I even covered him when he played, let alone being a coach. So, I've been around the block a long time, but this was a great honor for me and my family, and I want to thank the members of the council and town administrator Steve Contenti for allowing me to come here tonight and give these words about this fine organization, which I'm now a member of. And I believe of all the guys that have ever gotten in there, and this goes back to when the club was founded in 1945, I'm the first Portuguese Italian to be inducted. So I'm very happy about that.
That's wonderful.
And again, I want to thank members of the council, Mr. Contenti, for allowing me this opportunity to receive this proclamation tonight.
Well, Manny, it's our pleasure. Come on up so I can give this to you, please.
Manny, you did not need to remind everybody how old I am, you know. I mean, there was my high school days, you know, when I played, but then coached, so which brings a lot of pride to the school, and I certainly can appreciate the gymnastics team, you know, their efforts in being Division I champs, you know. I lived through that 24 years, so I know what that feels like. So the best to them, and congratulations. Thank you.
So starting a meeting like this is always our pleasure. Celebrating success of Bristolians is, we're fortunate enough to do this a lot. We have so many things to be thankful for, and the people that were in front of us tonight were just part of that. So thank you all. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council. The first item on this evening's agenda is the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Next item is submission of minutes of previous meetings, items A, 1, 2, and 3.
Motion to approve previous minutes?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. I would ask that if I could get a motion to move 2 agenda items forward. I speak of I-11 and I-12. I-12 is BCWA update, and I-11 is for a Narcan policy update from our police department.
So moved.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So we'll start first since it's in chronological order, with I-11, which is from our administrator, update on the police department's policy on the use of Narcan, and I'll refer to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Once you provide it. Thank you.
And we have some fine gentlemen from the police department here, too, correct?
Thank you. I want to provide
And women.
Please.
Fine people.
Fine officers.
Officers. Thank you for that clarification. It's good to have all of you here, seriously.
We just wanted to provide an update to the town in reference to the opioid prevention policy that we recently updated at the police department. We had training that was conducted last week by the Department of Health, and all the members of the police department are now being issued Narcan and have it readily available to them. And this is a good thing to do, because now the officers, not only for the safety of the public, when it could happen, it's also for the safety of the officers, for accidental exposure. And this was a grassroots effort by the patrol division and the officers of the department to make this happen. So we just want to recognize the officers that came here tonight, that were able to stop by, and it's a good thing for the town and the community to have this available to the officers.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Notice I started with ladies. Thank you. So,
And I'd just like to say I applaud the police department and the administration for jumping on board the Narcan, because unfortunately we have to do this because it's the current day we live in that you guys have to carry Narcan. But long and the short of it, we want to make sure you're protected, right? And we have to protect our community. So I think it's the right steps, and it's the way we need to go. But excellent. I'm thrilled that we're moving forward with the Narcan.
and Emily Spence is here. Emily Spence is our HES director, and actually, Emily, you do a lot. So come on up.
Thank you. Thank you. I also just wanted to share, along with the wonderful development at the police department with the Narcan training. Last time I was here, I talked about the opioid overdose prevention grant, and Councilman Sweeney, you were asking about Narcan trainings, and so we're happy with the one that happened, and we also are offering several free Narcan trainings to the community. They're actually REST Community Crisis Toolkit trainings, which include a Narcan training, so there's an abundance of resources for families who are dealing with substance use disorders, and a training in Narcan. So we have trainings coming up at the Rogers Free Library on May 4th at 10 a.m., at Bristol County Medical Center on May 9th at 5:30 p.m., and at the First Congregational Church on May 19th at 11:15 a.m. So we're excited about those. We also are doing a Train the Trainer to get more Narcan trainers out. And then the East Bay Recovery Center will become a site where people can go throughout their open hours and get doses of Narcan. But also through the code grant, we did receive 15 nalox boxes, which will be installed in all the municipal buildings throughout town, and some public sites as well, which will have a dose of Narcan in them as well. So I'm working with Chief DeMello to get these installed in the next month or so. So we're excited about lots of great developments that are going on. We also have Drug Take Back Day coming up on April 27th and we're going to have a box at the Family Resource Fair at the Quinta Gamlin Community Center from 1 to 4, and also people can bring their unused drugs back to the police station that day as well, and receive a Deterra deactivation kit as well for to use to get rid of their drugs in the future.
And Emily, will these dates be posted anywhere online? So
Yep. We'll
public
get
can go
them
out?
on the. We can get them on the town website. They're on our
Great.
Health Equity Zone website. We've got flyers here. They're in social media, so we're blasting it out and about. Free refreshments at all the trainings. So a little
Thank
extra
you.
encouragement. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chief, members of the police department, thank you for what you're doing. We hope we never have to use it, and it's
Yeah.
good that we have a plan if we do. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Could I have a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is I-12, correct?
Yes.
And this regards the upcoming repairs to the East Bay pipeline for the Bristol County Water Authority.
So I had this agenda item added as a last minute, and it's really strange to call you Director Martin. I'm used to calling you Chief Martin. So, but we have all three directors here. Thank you, all three, for this was a last minute request, but this is also an emergency issue, and we wanted to have the council and ultimately the town informed about what's going on. So thank you to all of you, and if you could share.
Well, thank you very much. It's nice to be back here under these circumstances. But yes, we do have a leak in the pipe crossing the bay. Just the purpose of tonight is to summarize where we are, what we know, and what's going to happen going forward. This leak was detected on the 9th of April. BCWA's monitoring system detected it, notified it, and went out to the board the same day. It's approximately 200 gallons a minute. So it's fairly significant, about 300,000 gallons a day, so on and so forth. But it is not noticeable to the users. The leak itself is presenting itself in a parking lot in the Port of Providence, where the pipeline starts before it crosses under the bay. The specific location, we still don't know. Okay, this far it's still leaking, and progress is being made to address those things. All the holding tanks within the towns are topped off in case of a dire emergency, so that was the first indication that we got. BCWA held a press conference on the 11th of April to inform all the communities and the people who utilize Bristol County water, okay, we have an issue, we're addressing it, and they were notified of that, and same. On the 11th of April, the board held an emergency meeting to address the issue and to proceed forward and allow BCWA to initiate repairs. Obviously, money is necessary to start. In total, we authorized $500,000. It was out of their contingency fund that they hold. $300,000 goes towards the contractor, who since that time, I can inform you, it's going to be CB Utilities, who will be the contractor of choice. $100,000 went toward two engineering firms, one Beta Engineering and the other is PAR Engineering, or PAR Engineering. Beta has in the past worked on the initial lay of the pipe. So they have documentation going back to then, which is going to assist everyone in finding and repairing the leak. There is a shot at a camera insertion into the pipeline. We allowed $65,000 for that. This would be dropping a camera into the pipeline, letting it go along, and doing that to determine where the leak is. Uncertain if we're going to find the leak first or put the camera in first. So we submitted dollars for that. And then the remaining $45K was for contingency as we go. So we're in a not to exceed $500,000 at this point in time. On April 12th, the BCWA, in conjunction with East Providence, tested a pipe that's been there for, I think, 2 years that goes around our pipe, the Bristol County Water Authority pipe, and There was a news thing on that, and somebody said something about don't drink the water. That is totally untrue. They did test it. The test was satisfactory. They had sufficient water to support us in the event that the Cross Bay pipeline needs to be shut down. So there is sufficient water for everything to happen. Let's see. The big player, as always, is DEM. They've been in contact with DEM throughout in order to make sure that everything is done according to their specifications as we start the dig and so on and so forth. April 15th, working with Beta, they defined and implemented a plan going forward with DEM. We also held, BCWA held a meeting with the administrators of each town, Barrington, Warren, and Bristol, and the fire chiefs. Just to inform them what was going on, especially the fire chiefs in case of anything happening. The fire chiefs implemented a thing of not utilizing fire hydrants for training until this is repaired and back online totally. It's just a preventative thing. They don't want to input anything or to have the guys out there playing in the water. I shouldn't say playing, training with the water and doing that. So they're not going to utilize hydrants. There's still enough training to go on that they could do. They could run the burn trailer. They could do all the other things that they normally would do. We also have a thing as a backup in case of any dire emergencies and so on and so forth, be able to utilize with the 3 towns, and our rep is back there, I shouldn't point him out, Tom is from Rhode Island EMA, to utilize the Code Red system in case something comes up with that. So it's just another place to prepare in case of a worst case situation. And again, today we know we selected CB Utilities. EMA is on for Communications World. As of today, this morning, BCWA has ordered various materials to plan ahead for how do we repair the pipe. They don't know if it's a hole in the pipe, a crack in the pipe, where it is on a seam or whatever. So they're ordering various materials that would implement the repair, hopefully without shutting down the Cross Bay pipeline. Shutting down the Cross Bay pipeline would require, at the other end of the whole spectrum, the cleaning and sanitizing of the whole pipeline again to do that. So the Port of Providence and CB Utilities met today. They established the location for what they call a soil mitigation plan. Here's where we're going to put all the dirt once we excavate it and find the leak and so on and so forth. Starting to mobilize tomorrow, Friday. The initial effort is going to be and I learned this, they're going to drill holes along the pipeline to dewater it. Because obviously there's a significant amount of water flowing someplace if you're doing 200 gallons a minute. So they're going to drill holes, they'll sink them down, and the water will seep into these holes and they'll pump it out. And they have to take care of that water that comes out and sanitize it or do whatever they have to do in order to continue to process. You got to dry the dirt out before we can dig in it. That's what I was told. So the site is going to be under control of the Port of Providence, which is where the cross line, the pipe passes. So access will be controlled. If you want to go in there, I've talked with Councilman Lay. We both want to see it, so we'll have to get authorization to go in BCWA will get us access to it as we need to. So that's where we stand right now. We expect the process to start Friday, mobilizing everything, starting the process of dewatering, if you would, then the actual location of the leak, repair the leak. Hopefully it'll be an easy fix and we'll proceed onward.
So for clarity, you filled up the tanks that are in the communities.
In all the communities, yes.
We have a backup feed through East Providence.
Correct.
So the change, if I'm a resident of Bristol and I want to use the water, or Warren or Barrington, is there anything I need to be worried about there, or is it just use the water as if nothing happened?
It should have no impact on anything that any citizen does. The pipeline that they tested provided sufficient water supply for the communities. If they run into an issue, you're going to run into the issue in the summer when the usage of water climbs. If we're still in this mode, they will ask for a restrictive water use, water in the lawn, so on and so forth.
Okay, but the day-to-day
usage, drinking water, so on and so forth, and there was no impact with the testing of that added pipe the other day.
So since I've been on the council, there's been multiple conversations about backup and redundant water sources from the towns, from BCWA. What an absolutely perfect example of why we need one. And I know that there's steps being taken, but I know this council and the town and the administrators stand ready to be part of that to make sure that we're moving forward, and I know you are too.
Yes.
But thank you for that update. I'm sure my colleagues have some questions. So.
In terms of fire suppression, I think I heard you correctly. That would not impact. I mean, obviously, the various departments through the 3 communities are being asked to,
Right.
cut down on any use at this point. However, if there is an if there is a fire in either one of the communities, there should not be a problem.
There is no impact to any fire suppression.
Okay.
Right.
Even with the backup system.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Martin, are you done?
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Martin, thanks for coming here today, and thanks to Mr. Mariscal and Ms. McDonald for coming as well. Just a quick question. Has there been any discussion of any scenarios whereby the gallons per minute might increase in the next coming days or anything like that? We're at 200 gallons per minute and about 300,000 gallons per day. Any scenarios out there that we should be worried about?
I have heard of nothing like that. As a matter of fact, I met with Ken Booth this morning, and there has been no increase in the gallons per minute being lost as of this morning. Don't know why. It's just flowing. It's a significant. When you look at it, it's 200 gallons a minute, but it is a significant amount. But we're handling all of that and such.
Thank you.
Just a couple of questions, and that is, first of all, everything I've read, I'm sort of happy. It's a terrible situation, but I'm happy that it's in the parking lot and not under the bay. I think that's a good thing, and hopefully that's where they'll find the actual leak. Are they pretty confident that's where it is?
From my take, they are confident that it is somewhere in that parking lot. Mm-hmm. There's question, the parking lot contains the major pipe from Situate that is a 30-inch pipe. There's a reducer somewhere in the parking lot. And I say somewhere because they have put up berms and such in that Port of Providence to skew where things were initially buried. But if there is a reducer from the 30-inch pipe to a 24-inch pipe somewhere in there, then they're looking in that location, honestly.
So the emergency connection, it was just tested to make sure if we needed it, that it would be utilized, not being utilized currently, correct?
That's correct.
And then once you find the actual spot of the leak, how long do you think that it will take to fix that? Any idea?
No.
Depends on what the
that's why I indicated the engineers from BCWA are buying various types of materials to possibly address any kind of leak that it is. If it's a puncture, if it's a crack, if it's whatever, what can they do to stop the leak? And so they have to buy various materials to try to implement that.
Just one last comment. I mean, along with our chairman, I think this reiterates the point of getting moving on and I know it's not BCWA's fault. I know this council's always been supportive of moving forward with the like a full connection, not just an emergency connection to East Providence into the Pawtucket water supply system as a redundant source. I think it's really important that we do that. I know you're working on that, and hopefully this gets, once this crisis is over, the push necessary to move forward, not only on our end, but on East Providence's end as well, because it could have been happening to them. And so I appreciate you all coming here tonight to, and for all the emails and so forth that, in letters that have been sent from BCWA to all of us to keep us apprised of the situation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Could I just say a word?
Of course.
I just wanted to, Mary, speak to your point, because I've been on the water board now, I think, 5 years. And this redundant connection was being discussed when I joined the board. And in my opinion, we would have a redundant connection today if East Providence had not been dragging its feet. So anything that this council or our legislators can do to convince East Providence it's in their best interest would be very helpful. And we as a board feel that if East Providence elects not to go forward, we will plow ahead without them.
Thank you. Is there any other questions from this council?
No, I just wanted to comment. I really hope East Providence comes to the table. I mean, if anything, this is a prime example of why they haven't in the past come to the table, but now it's right in front of our door, and they need to now come to the table, take action, and make sure they're doing the right steps to put in this redundant water supply.
Real quick, just because it wasn't public. Go ahead.
I just want to say one thing. This issue's been going up.
Who are you, please?
I'm Pete Hewitt from Bristol.
Hi. Welcome. Go ahead.
I haven't been here in a while. I'm glad I walked in on this one, because this has been going on for so long.
I know.
And I think it was months ago that I asked the question, who in East Providence is blocking this plan? And I suggested at that time the town council find out who in East Providence is mucking up the works.
Right.
Do we know who the...
I don't
It's the
know.
town council. Who on the town council?
So what I don't want to do is go off topic, because this was just an update, but you are on topic but off topic, if you know what I mean.
I just think that something needs to be done to bring East Providence to bear. And as Gina has suggested, I suggested a while ago, even though it's going to be more costly, if East Providence refuses and there's no way possibly to coerce them into getting on board, then we ought to proceed with the redundant water source up to Pawtucket via the East Providence and shut East Providence out from that water source. And until such time as they come back begging to get access to it, then they can pay their fair share. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was actually talking to the directors, but I'll say thank you to you too, Pete. So, directors, thank you for that update. It was very important that the public knows what's going on with this, that the council and the town knows what's going on with this. We appreciate your time and efforts. So,
Thank you. Have a good evening. Happy Easter, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank
Same
you.
to you. Thank you.
Could I have a motion to receive and file, please?
So move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Lou, we're going to move forward. We'll just do that in time.
That's fine. Yep. So the next item on this evening's agenda, Mr. Chairman and members of the Town Council, is item C1. This is the second reading for adoption of Ordinance 2019-02. This is an amendment to the comprehensive schedule of fees, which removes the summer camp fee, and it will replace that with the Town Council resolution, which is found as item I1. This is the second reading for adoption.
So before we vote on this, just for clarity for the public, we continue to take steps like this. It used to, and it actually currently does, and when we vote on this, hopefully it does, and it required an ordinance change, which meant a lot of paperwork, a lot of cost involved in that. And this change will take this fee out, like we've done with other things, and make it, as the clerk pointed out, a resolution from this council. That means that this discussion will still happen in the public, and there will be dialogue in the public and where it's going and why, but it doesn't require an ordinance change to get there. The goal behind this was to update these fees, and Tim Shaw, the assistant director, did you want to share this? This is an update. We have a phenomenal summer camp, and this update allows to add an extra week of summer camp. But Tim, could you elaborate?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Having spent last summer down here and talking with a lot of the parents, we have a great summer camp. We couldn't have a better location. And we were running the summer camp for 6 weeks, and looking at our staffing, looking at when they're available to start, how far into the summer we could go. From everything I looked at, it made sense to add a week, and I think it was a benefit all around. So looking with Julie at the fee schedule, it needed updating, and that's what brought this to the Town Council.
Okay. Perfect, thank you.
So this brings us to 7 weeks versus 6, correct?
That's correct.
All right.
And will it be 35 days then, because you have 7 days out of the week times 5? But are there any holidays in there as well?
We do. So we have around the 4th of July, because of everything going on down there.
What happens around the 4th
Just a
around
couple
here? I'm not sure.
things.
Yeah,
A couple
okay, right.
things. We got a few people in town, and also we start because it's traditionally the campus started on a Wednesday, so we start on a Wednesday, and we have, depending on where the 4th of July falls, we typically get the third. We'll not run camp 3rd, 4th, 5th, or what makes sense depending on how it's situated in that week.
Well, it's a Thursday, so are you going to do both? Are you going to not have it all 3 days?
We would have it Monday, Tuesday, and we wouldn't have camp Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of that week.
So when are you starting, the last week of June then?
We start on Wednesday, June 19th.
Oh, June 19th.
Excellent.
That's early, okay.
This will allow the update. The cost increase will now be $230. That's for the season. If anybody uses daycare, my goodness, what a deal that is. So it is tremendous. But more importantly, it's a phenomenal experience for the kids. So what's this council's pleasure?
So move to approve it?
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is Ordinance 2019-01. This is the so-called Disabled Veterans Tax Credit. This is the first reading.
Motion to approve the first reading?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Next item is Ordinance 2019-03. This would be an ordinance that would increase the number of Class BV intoxicating beverage licenses from 28 to 29.
Motion to approve the first reading for adoption?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And finally, in the ordinance section, we have Ordinance 2019-04, and this would be to change the name of the Bristol Substance Abuse Prevention Task Force and to also change the reporting structure of the task force. This is the first reading.
Motion to approve the first reading for adoption?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item D1, and this is the petition of Weidong Wang, president of 205 Thames LLC, doing business as Baba Sushi, 205 Thames Street, requests council consideration for a Class BV intoxicating beverage license. This is to call for public hearing to be held on May 15th, 2019.
What's this council's pleasure?
I move that we call for the public hearing.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to call for public hearing. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And the next item is item E1, and this is the dog kennel license renewals for 2019-2020. You have recommendations provided by the town administrator and the interim chief of police.
Motion to approve the dog kennel license renewals for 2019-2020.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item F1. This is the petition of Maria Barakat of 38 Collins Street, requests council consideration for removal of an accessible parking space. You have recommendations provided by the town administrator, the interim chief of police, and the director of public works.
So moved to constitute first reading?
Second.
This is second reading.
The second reading.
Second reading?
Sorry.
Second reading.
There's a motion and a second.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. I'll stop right here. I like to do this. This council thanks the people. When you need a handicapped parking space, we're here to help and consider such a thing. We also appreciate when it's no longer needed to bring it to our attention to open up that parking space again. So thank you.
The next item is item F2, and this is from Elizabeth Brito, who's the chair of the Rogers Free Library Board of Trustees, requests council approval of renovation projects.
Hi, Betty.
Good evening, everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the time this evening for me to share this with you and hopefully seek your blessing. As a result of the findings during our strategic planning process, the Rogers Free Library has embarked on a renovation project with the intent of reallocating space. 10 years after the addition to our library, we recognize that some of the library's space can be better utilized. To that end, and with the financial support of the Friends of the Rogers Free Library, we have hired NEMD architects to provide us with a redesign of the interior in 2 locations and to suggest upgraded fixtures, furnishings, and equipment for those specific spaces. Interestingly enough, NEMD is headed by its president and founder, Mehdi Khosravani, and Mehdi is a graduate of Roger Williams University School of Architecture. I was, fortunate enough to meet him through another nonprofit that we both serve on a board of, and through that relationship and through his relationship with the town of Bristol and Roger Williams, he has provided extensive pro bono services to us. The project that we're seeking your blessing on addresses the following needs. It's the redesign of the teen space on the main floor. We're going to enlarge it. The decor will reflect more comfortable and appropriate teen furnishings. No walls will be removed. A low wall will be added to better define the space. For those of you who are familiar with the library, that's the space adjacent to the main circ desk, and it's on the east side of the building. 2, we want to equip the existing quiet study on the main floor with technology that will improve the general functionality of that room and will allow for teen-specific use after school hours. 3, we want to make provision for a 20-seat conference room on the 3rd floor by enlarging the existing quiet study space. No wall will be removed, but walls will be added to define that space, and technology will also be added. 4, we want to add a quiet study adjacent to the new conference room on that floor, and walls will be added to define that space. And 5, we want to add a quiet study behind the elevator shaft on the 3rd floor. Walls will need to be added to define that space. So in total, what we're doing is taking the existing quiet study, which is highly used, and just kind of relocating and adding a quiet study. At the trustees meeting on February 19th, final details were approved. As soon as we receive approval from the council, the firm can proceed with an invitation to bid. One final note is that the Friends of the Rogers Free Library are prepared to provide full funding for this project.
Amazing.
Amazing.
That's amazing.
Thank you to the Friends.
That's awesome.
You can give a round of applause on that. That's okay. I know we are. I think it's outstanding. For myself, I think it's a very appropriate reuse of the space. Having that much more quiet area, and having much more space for meetings. I know the Harrishoff room is used extensively.
It is.
So it's another opportunity for the public to have a meeting space.
Right.
And we're very fortunate, and I mean this sincerely, and I'm going to give credit to Mary on this. She's been a proponent of increase to our library personnel. I'm talking about income.
Yes, thank you.
But this whole council and the administrator, and truly the town, is extremely supportive, and we're very fortunate to have what we have as a Rogers Free Library. So I think it's a wonderful idea, and I'm in support of it.
Excellent.
Definitely, I agreed. Making use of the space or repurposing, the use certainly is an ideal thing. Why not increases, attendance
Right.
and the use for other folks, so definitely, I'm on board.
Great.
And since the Friends of the Library are willing to pay for it,
Yes.
why not?
Yes, absolutely.
I want to just thank Betty. I mean, you've been such a
Yes.
great advocate and leader of the Friends group and raising money. I don't think we could be where we are today with the library and with any of the changes if it weren't for you and for the Friends. So thank you
put.
to all of you.
Well put.
And I think that
Yes.
we have to...
Go ahead.
Thank you.
just want to say, I think we have to keep up. I mean, I know in the reports and during the budget, when the library was here, there's a lot of utilization, but it's a different utilization now, and I think that we have to keep up with that. And I think the fact that you're not doing a lot of too many walls, I think that makes it flexible space. If it changes again in 10 years or 5 years, we can keep reconfiguring the space so that it's most useful.
Right.
So thank you very
Good.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything. I think that our library is probably one of our best treasures in this town, and I often go there just to work, just to do my grading and everything like that. And so I think, and I always see Joan out there. She's always like, "Oh, my councilman's out here grading and using the library." And but thank you very much, and I'm really excited to see these renovations. And as the chairman said, there's a lot of meeting space in that library. In fact, we had Save Bristol Harbor come out, and we actually had a discussion with my students from URI. I brought them from Kingston on a bus out here to Bristol just so that they can hear from the people that were fighting the LNG. And so it was awesome to be able to do that at the library.
I'm glad that you were able to book the Herreshoff room, because I rarely can book it for a trustees meeting. It's always being used. So
Betty, I know somebody. Call me next time. I'll take care of it for you.
Thank you. And Betty, thank you for, and everybody, keeping the library current with the times. I think adding the technology is really where it's at. We know where we're going for the future, and getting people to use it is important. We don't want it to become, just another empty building. And this is leadership and forethought, and so I'm on board.
So I need a motion.
Good.
Motion to approve the new plans for the library.
Second. There's a motion and a second to approve. Is there any other discussion?
Give it to Mary.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you
Good
very
luck.
much.
We look forward to the renovations. So-
Good luck.
We do enjoy a really good relationship with the town. I need to say that on many occasions, our police department have been really supportive and helpful, and they come and do walkthroughs, and that's helpful as well. And so we do have a good relationship.
You take the quiet seriously, don't you? My goodness. Wow, yes.
No, it's not because of that.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Betty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is the petition of Daniel Manchester on behalf of the Bristol Historical and Preservation Society, requesting the use of the Town Common for a flea and fair event on June 8th. You have recommendations provided by the Town Administrator, Director of Public Works, Interim Chief of Police, and Director of Parks and Recreation.
Motion to approve the request to use the town common for a flea and fair event on June 8th, 2019.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is the petition of Judy Tavares, 18 Ryan Avenue, request council consideration for an accessible parking space. This is the first reading.
Motion to approve the first reading.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is the petition of Paul Reducha and others regarding a request to expand the residential parking district to a section of Wood Street. This would be for no overnight parking except with resident sticker. You have a recommendation provided by the Town Administrator and the Interim Chief of Police.
So the administrator, the chief of police, and myself met with two of the people on the petition this morning, Paul being one of them, John another, and they have asked to pull this from the agenda. It's no longer needed, so we can just do a receive and file.
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item F5. This is the petition of Sarah Pardee and others who are requesting removal of a street light on pole 11-1 on Monkey Wrench Lane. You have a correspondence provided by the administrator and also recommendations provided by the Director of Public Works, the Town Administrator, the Fire Chief, and the Interim Chief of Police.
Okay. Is Sarah here? Hi, Sarah.
Thank you for
Welcome.
Thank you for letting me address you.
Of course.
I was here in 2016 on February 10th at a town council meeting when there had been a petition to change the lighting on Monkey Wrench Lane, which I objected to. And I was, I think, requested at that time to formally present a petition explaining my objection, which I then put together, and every resident on Monkey Wrench Lane, with the exception of the Sisters of St. Dorothy, who we did not involve in this, signed that petition.
Microphone. Could you move the microphone just a little bit closer to you?
I'll
Thank
switch
you.
closer to it.
Thank you.
Everyone on the lane signed that petition requesting that the light on pole 11 not be installed. When I brought it to Mr. Texera, who was at that point the town administrator, you informed me that the petition had been withdrawn. I didn't realize that then my commentary didn't, I guess, get entered into sort of public knowledge, because then the next thing I knew was I was looking out my bedroom window in 2018 and there's a light on the pole being turned on. And so I came in and met with Mr. Contente and explained to him my concern that the light which has been put on the pole, which is the light that I had requested not to be put on the pole, shines in my bedroom. It shines in my neighbors' bedroom windows and their living room window. It lights up my front parking area brilliantly. And it just sort of seemed as though this was exactly the issue that we had brought in front of the town council in 2016. I didn't know how it had gotten.
So I can help you with some of that. Some things have changed. Here's one of them, is that in 2016, we actually didn't end up hearing it, to your point, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was taken off the agenda. It was,
although my petition was submitted.
I agree with you.
I don't know what happened to it.
It would have been it was part of our packet, but it was never discussed in the public because it was, the petition was then removed at that point. But I wanted to share a couple of things that have changed. The town, as everybody, well, maybe most everybody knows, we went to LED lighting. What that means is that the town purchased all of those lights. Prior to that happening, so in 2016 and prior to that, National Grid was the owner of the lights that were there, the halogen lights that were there. The council would weigh in on that because it was a lease with National Grid. Each and every light was installed by National Grid, and we paid them a yearly fee to rent those, and that included the use of an electricity and all of that. So there was a process before that required the council to see it. I do believe that in this instance, that's probably why we are here right now. But the council is here as a potential board of relief. So because something happened that you're in disagreement with or unhappy with, that's what we're also here to talk about tonight. So I wanted to be clear to say that's how we got to here. So it wasn't and nor did you suggest such a thing. We didn't go around to process. The process changed because it doesn't require council action to put a light up now. It's part of DPW's budget. We use a company called Siemens to install them, and then there's maintenance, then all of that goes with it. So,
well,
but we are here now. So
thank you for that clarification.
No problem.
I have again presented you all with a petition that every single resident, excepting the Sisters of St. Dorothy, who we did not involve in this, have again signed asking to please not have that light there. I don't really know what else to say above and beyond the fact that the issue of safety doesn't seem to be an issue because there's never been a safety issue there. My family's lived there for forever. I've lived there. I'm 62. I hate to admit it, but that's how old I am. I've been there my whole life, and there's never been an accident there. And to say that that area is dark is not necessarily accurate because the nuns have the most bright lights on their property. They have 2 lights at the end of their driveway. It lights up that area extremely well, so there really isn't darkness. And the issue of safety, I think, is decreased because I, as the person who lives sort of at the bottom of the hill where the turn is, when I come around that corner and there is no street light there, I can see a car approaching from the opposite direction because I can see their headlights coming. And so then I know to stop and let them come around the corner. Now that there's a street light, you don't see it as easily, and there has been at least one time where I've kind of really had to back up because you couldn't see the car lights coming because the street light made it not as visible. So my request is to have the streetlight removed or at least turned off. It greatly affects our quality of life on the lane, and the fact that every single resident of Monkey Wrench Lane feels the same way, I think, has to carry some weight of balancing someone's concern about safety, where there's never been an issue with safety, over our concern about quality of life. And I think I have a lot of neighbors here who would love to have a say. Is that okay?
Of course. Yeah. If and what we can do is if it's the same set of facts that you'd like to share. I mean, you don't all have to say the same thing. You can tell us that you all agree by "so say we" if you so choose. So yeah. Okay. So we can hear some general agreement out there. What we have in front of this council is a couple of recommendations. One is from the police chief, and we also have one from Director McBride, which both gentlemen are here. The one from Director McBride suggests a potential solution, which is a skirt for Kevin. Could you speak a little bit on this and tell us about this?
Sure. Basically, what it is a shield that's applied to the light itself, and it can mask where the light is thrown. I'm not sure whether or not that will actually, in fact, improve conditions. We haven't received the shield yet to be installed. As soon as we get it, it'll go up right away, and we can assess from there. But basically, as the light's thrown down towards the ground, you can see the spread of the light. It will restrict the light throw in a certain direction. I believe this woman's property is located across the street from where the light is, which would put it on the front side of the light, and the shield installation on the front side of the light, I'm not sure how that works. Okay. I know it works very well on the back side of the light, so it remains to be seen whether or not it will help their condition. My recommendation, as I stated in my letter, was that we would install this and let's evaluate it at that point and see if that helps her with her concerns, and yet still provides the lighting in the area that may be of somebody else's concern.
Without getting into very particulars on this, is there pretty much one kind of skirt for
Pretty
this
much,
light?
yes.
This is the one that we offer?
Correct,
kind of
and
thing?
that's the one that's been ordered by Siemens, and is, like I said, as soon as they get it in, they'll be out within about 24 to 48 hours to put it up.
Okay.
Will it address the concerns of the light shining in her window? Okay,
I don't
we
know.
Okay.
So until it was
I can't answer
installed.
that question. I need to see the installation of it, and then how it goes from there.
Would it address my concern about not being able to see the car lights coming around the corner?
I couldn't answer that question until we install it. I mean, the best I can say is let's install it on the fixture, and then evaluate the conditions based on the installation, and then either it improves conditions to her liking, or we go to the next step, which would maybe table it and bring it before the council once it's installed. Might be the best resolution in the interim.
Chief Peters, did you want to speak on this?
We, members of the council, we looked at this back in October of 2018, and at that time we looked at it as a public safety, looking at it through a public safety concern. And the issue is that road goes down and bends to the right. And the way the police department looked at it at the time was not just for the residents that live down in the area, but any motorists that would be traveling on a public street, would they be able to see that the road bent at that location? And the consensus was that they needed to have a light down there, so any motorist going into that area who was unfamiliar with that section of town would know that the road bent in that area for the safety of the residents, the motorists, the property down there at that location. So it was recommended at that time. At the same time now, we agree that the light should still be there. We're not opposed if there is some sort of shield, but just so there's some sort of lighting so any motorists in that area will know that there's a bend in the roadway.
Can I just ask a question about that, though, just as a follow-up? And it also goes to, Kevin may be able to answer this. I mean, there are not a lot of people that travel down there unless you're down there for a reason. So, unless somebody's having a party or whatever, I imagine if there's any big events, it would be at the Sisters of St. Dorothy, and they're sort of towards the beginning of the road. Are there alternatives that could be, I'm thinking like more ground level lighting that could show that curve? I'm just wondering about that, throwing that out there. And also, if there is like, do we have the ability to dim the lights in certain areas, like certain street lights?
I could certainly look into that. Some of those LED fixtures do have a couple of settings on them. I don't remember the type of fixture that's out there. Again, when Siemens goes up to install a shield, if there's a dimmable fixture on that, they can certainly adjust it down.
Not
and
to
I can ask them
interrupt,
to do
but they
that.
were out there a couple of days ago, and they said it is not a dimmable fixture.
Is there a way to change the bulb out to something that is a different color? I mean, I know that I know in the streetlight discussion when we had it, we wanted to make sure that we had, something that was on the brighter side, so people be able to, for most of our streetlights, but in that area that may not be necessary.
I guess that's my feeling completely, which is in this area, it just isn't necessary. And I guess that's my confusion.
Right.
If every single resident is saying this isn't necessary, and every single resident is saying this detracts from the quality and the ambiance that we enjoy in our neighborhood, is there a reason why we're having this discussion about how to make it less unpleasant when everyone's in agreement we don't even want it there?
Well, I would just say that the quandary, I think, I understand the position, and I really don't have a final decision on it. Like, I think it's a little hard-pressed for the council when the police department or fire department, I don't think the fire department weighed in on this, but...
I don't think so.
They did?
reflect this.
Yeah, it makes makes a recommendation that these lights are important. So that becomes like the public safety side of it, and so I think it puts us in a difficult position in relation to what the residents, you're right, you don't need it, it's very few people down there. But
And everyone is saying, we don't want it.
Right.
I guess when does the quality of life and the neighbors all in agreement supersede, well, maybe it would be a little bit safer to have this added or that added? When does our quality of life supersede? I mean, yes, if you put lights everywhere, we could all see better and we could all navigate maybe a little bit safer, but there's a balance that has to be obtained between quality of life and safety, and that's why we all get into cars and we drive, even though we know at some point we might have an accident.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe this is a quality of life issue where everyone is in agreement.
Ms. Barty, can you tell me a little bit, how long have you lived in that area? And
As I mentioned, I'm 62.
Oh, your whole life? Your whole life?
He made you say it again. What are you doing?
You want my date of birth? Yes, as a matter of fact, I'm living in my grandmother's house.
Mm-hmm.
I own my parents' house, which is number 16.
Okay.
I used to live at what used to be number 14, but now is at Bristol Point Road. My family's lived there forever.
I'm counting 15 residences on the sheet who've signed on to it. Would it be safe to say that a lot of them have lived there for most of their lives as well, or are there some new developments?
I would say so, yes. They've all lived there forever.
Okay.
I'm not going to mention their ages, no matter how many times you ask me.
Good for you. Good for you.
I know that my cousin Nancy would like to have an
Welcome.
opportunity to speak.
Good evening, Council, and thank you for hearing us tonight. I'm Nancy Fulton-Bragard. I've also lived there all my life, and I'm 68, and happy to be so. I really do appreciate being able to come forward and speak our position on this, because we really did feel heard, the Monkey Wrench Lane people, and there are a lot of us here tonight. We really did feel heard 3 years ago when this came forward, and we would love to feel heard again tonight. And as Sarah says, we don't feel and see the need for this light at all. And I would like to speak, I'm not going to repeat what Sarah has said. She's been very articulate. But I would like to say that I was very surprised to see the requests that came through for this light. In the letter of the request, it's mentioned there is no street lighting from the turnoff to Monkey Wrench Lane from Low Lane till this pole 11. That's true, there is no street lighting. But there is, as was mentioned, the lighting at the Sisters of St. Dorothy. And by the way, the Sisters of St. Dorothy is not at all up the hill, it's down the hill. It's the last piece of property before my two homes. My homes are 10 and 12 Monkey Wrench Lane, so they're the ones that are just opposite the light. And when I walk down, and in the summer months, I love to walk home, and I don't need any lighting when I reach the Sisters of St. Dorothy, because there are 2 lights out front, there are 2 lights further down, and then there are huge lamps further on. And so that corner is, in fact, quite well lit. I was really surprised to see, to read in this request, that there's total darkness. There is not total darkness. The other thing that comes in this request is that the only homes that are impacted by this light that's gone up are 2 of them are only impacted in the parking lots, which is not true. As Sarah has said, it comes into her home. The Tracys, it comes into their home. And as far as my home, where I reside is in the back, but the other house, which is also mine, in the letter it says that is a rental property. Now, is that to say that there's no consideration for people that rent? I mean, I feel that renters need as much consideration as property owners. And the rental property, he's with us tonight, that comes right into their home, into their living room, into one of the bedrooms. So it really is unfortunate. It is very invasive. And so I want to close by saying I did grow up here. I live in Europe now, but this is still home. And I have come home. I've lived in Europe for 44 years. I have come home, and I call it home, every single summer. And I love nothing more than walking around Monkey Wrench Lane on a dark night and being able to see the stars. And with that light, you can't do that. So I am seconding Sarah's request to have the light removed. It is not necessary in all safety. And I understand that the town of Bristol is really taking care of safety these days with the very unfortunate accidents that we've had recently. But Monkey Wrench Lane is not a place where we need to take safety in such consideration. So we really hope to be heard tonight the way we were heard 3 years ago. Thank you, Council.
I just wanted to say that I'm the renter, and I live on 10 Monkey Wrench Lane. My wife and I have lived in Westport, Massachusetts, on Drift Road that had absolutely no streetlights. And then our first night on 10 Monkey Wrench Lane, I'm like, what is that light? And I sent to Mr. Contenti are you Mr. Contenti? Yes. Okay. A memorandum explaining the situation, and I'd like, if you could I read that now? Is that
if you don't mind just giving a synopsis of it, unless it's it's really quick.
There's 2 issues I have with that light. The first issue is a glare. I mean, by the way, many communities in this country are having issues with these LED lights. I submitted pictures to Mr. Contenti. I also submitted a report from the American Medical Association with the issues associated with these LED lights. And the glare issue is, we didn't have curtains. We had to go out and buy curtains. There's the picture from my front window, my living room. And then I have pictures from my bedroom. The light shines in my house like it's lit up like a football field. My whole front yard, my garage is all lit up. So there's a glare issue there, and there's also a trespass of light on my property. I have rights like homeowners. I've owned houses for 40 years. I'm 64 years old.
What is up with the ages tonight?
And so my issue, I can't speak to whether or not the light should be taken down. I leave that up to other people to make that decision. But I agree with you that we can do something about this. It's really affecting, number one, my sleep, my children's sleep. I have a 19-year-old and a 14-year-old, and it's a problem. Go by there right now. I urge you to do that and see the light shining on my front yard, in our bedrooms. No one here would want that.
Just so we're clear,
yes,
the light that's there is all over town. So, and that's not a standing that it should stay, but it's the same light that's everywhere. And the reason, if I may finish, the reason why the town went that way was that we could certainly we've saved massive amounts of money.
I understand that.
300 and something thousand a year, but that doesn't degrade your point. We certainly, I certainly hear, and I think my colleagues certainly hear, where where you're coming from on this. What I'd like us to see do is that actually all three of you said we've been heard, and you were heard before and you heard again. Well, you're being heard right now. Honestly, we wouldn't take this much time about one street light if A, you weren't being heard, right? So if you're sitting there, why are we taking this much time? Well, it is a safety concern. We have a letter from our police and fire saying that it is more beneficial to have it than not. Now, ultimately, it is this council's call, right? I would like us to see, we have a suggestion to improve the situation. Let's try it. The worst thing that happens is that it doesn't work. If it doesn't work, we can continue this to the next meeting. If in fact, and I'll let you finish, don't worry.
Okay, sure.
If in fact it doesn't work, and it's still invasive, and there's no other way to improve this but yet deal with the safety, then this council can make a call at that time. I don't know what my colleagues think, but I'd like us to consider at least this option. If this option is not successful, then we will, regardless, we can continue. And the worst thing that happens is we talk about it didn't work, what are our options? And if it means removing it at that point in time, and that's the only other option, then this council will make that call. Mr. Administrator, I'm sorry, Tony, did you want to share? You look like you want to say first.
No, go ahead. The Administrator.
Okay, go ahead.
I concur with the position the council seems to be going with this, and the recommendation from the director. But I want to be known that this isn't anything that the administration or departments pursued. This was brought to our attention formally in writing about safety issues, pedestrian safety, from a resident who lives at an intersecting street who travels through that public roadway. The issue was never resolved. I'm glad it is now, and we're going to offer a solution.
Sure, I understand that. In my memorandum...
May I finish, please?
Yeah, sure.
We've offered a solution, and we're going to give it a trial, and as I'm hearing, it looks like it'll go before the council. Ultimately, they'll have that decision, which we don't take lightly, because we know what the ramifications of dark streets and pedestrians add up to. That was presented to our town departments and to myself. We took it seriously. It needs to be resolved, and I think we're getting to where we need to be. So I just ask you to be patient, allow it to go through the process, and then we respect the decision that the council makes in the end.
I want everyone to understand, if you read my memorandum, it says exactly what you just said. My last paragraph says, I believe that the town's obligation to keep its roads safe has to be balanced with our rights and our neighbors' rights to peaceful enjoyment of our houses. Reasonable solutions to the issues discussed herein would be for the town to place a shield on the street light to adjust the angle of the LEDs, which will stop them from beaming into residents' homes, and to investigate the possibility of adding dimming controls, which is what everyone has said here. So I'm coming here just to hopefully work out a solution, because this light is very bright and it's affecting my life, my wife's life, my dog's life, and our two sons' lives.
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking, is that there's some solution. Other towns have dealt with this. Davis, California, spent $350,000 because of the issues associated. New York City has a problem. Portland has a problem. Charleston, Rhode Island. There's a lot of problems, but I'm trying to just work and offer a solution. The problem is there's many problems, and I'd urge everyone to read my memorandum and to read the AMA report, the American Medical Association report.
I don't think we have your memo. You sent it to Steve, right? Is it in?
That was yesterday?
Yeah, it was forwarded in the email.
That's 2 days ago.
Oh, today? Oh, the other day?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yesterday it was forwarded.
Oh, I didn't print it. Okay.
Yeah.
2 days ago.
We'll make sure it gets sent again. Tony?
Yes. I'll be very brief. But I've traveled that road quite a few times. I've traveled prior to the light being there. In fact, in 2016, when the request came before the council, to myself first and to go before the council. I traveled through there, been there before and after, as I said, and I have to concur that it does make it difficult when you come around that curve and that light is on. It's very difficult to detect that there is an oncoming vehicle in the opposite direction. As some of you know, might not know, the administrator in Little Compton, we have 33 lights in the entire town. Darkness is what they prefer there, and it's much easier because I come home many times after the meetings at 9 o'clock, and it certainly makes life a lot easier to identify oncoming vehicles. That being said, obviously the light is up right now, so looking at the solution, I would concur that we should give it a shot with a curtain for the time being. However, we should visit this in the very near future, and at that point, make a determination, give an opportunity for the residents to have additional input as well as from the folks who provided recommendations as well. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to say I concur with Councilman Texera in regards to hopefully finding a compromise between the residents, because I do hear that's disturbing. If we can figure out that the skirt or the shield does work, hopefully that can be some sort of compromise. But I would like to go forward and just give that a try, and then have you get your feedback from that. So I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if we continue this agenda item to the next council meeting, and hopefully the skirt is up, and we'd have some feedback from the residents.
So Director McBride was pleased, but it sounded like that wouldn't be an issue. So we could know its outcome at that point. Correct?
Once the shield has been installed, I'll notify the administrator and the council so that you can visit the site, and then hopefully
or walk.
It will be before the next council meeting.
Okay.
So I do have one question before we move forward, and how long will it take us to be able to get that shield, do you think? Did you say it was just maybe a couple days they'd be out here or something like that? Because I know that...
as soon as I received the petition for this agenda item several weeks ago, I contacted Siemens to order the shield to have it installed. We had email traffic with them yesterday, and they had not received it yet. Again, I don't know a delivery time on it, but as soon as they get it, they're actually shipping it to the individual that maintains the lights in this town to his house, so that he'll get it and put it in his truck that day and put it up within 24 to 48 hours. So, it could be tomorrow that they get it. I really don't know.
So the goal is certainly expeditiousness.
Yeah, I would hope by the next council meeting it's up and in, and then we can assess it from there.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion to continue this to the May 15th council meeting, and we'd like to get the feedback again from the residents and how they feel on the skirt, and then we can go from there.
Is there a second?
My motion?
I'll second. Discussion? Is there anything else? So, again, we heard you, obviously. Or maybe not obviously, I shouldn't say that, right? We heard you. Thank you for the input. And honestly, you're coming across this reasonable. I also believe you will look at this reasonable. So if the skirt actually does make a whatever X amount of improvement and it's acceptable or it's tolerable or better than tolerable, then I know that you'll come back and say that to us. So we have a motion and a second to continue this to our May 15th meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you all for your words, too.
Thank you. The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is item F7. This is the petition of Randy Walters, 17 Congregational Street, request council permission to set up a camera on parade route for the upcoming 4th of July parade. You have recommendations provided by the Town Administrator and Interim Chief of Police.
So I reached out to the solicitor today in regards to this particular agenda item, and Mike, if you could just reiterate, but you shared with me that this didn't require council action. No. This was under the auspices of the 4th of July Committee.
Exactly. So I would either refer it to the 4th of July Committee or receive and file it.
So moved.
I'm going to take that as what? What did you
refer it to?
Okay, excellent.
July Committee.
Second. There's a motion and a second. Discussion? Hi.
Hi.
Are you Randy?
I am Randy.
Hi, Randy. How are you?
Randy.
Oh, so was this a done deal already?
No, Randy, if I knew you were you, I would have shared this right in the beginning, which is this was on our agenda, and it doesn't need to be on our agenda. This would be under the 4th of July, and I spoke with the 4th of July General Chairman today.
Yes.
And she had gone through the steps with the media company, I believe it's ABC6.
ABC6.
And they checked with them, and they had no issue with it. And what Fran had shared with me was there was no objection to it. So just reach out to them, but you don't need our approval on this. So.
All right. Well, that was easy. I guess.
Thanks for staying that whole time, though. We appreciate it.
I appreciate the opportunity to come in and make the case. I'm a local composer and filmmaker, and I'm hoping that the footage I'm able to get for this project will be used to help tourism in Bristol and put on a good public face for the community.
Well, Randy, please share the end result with us, if you would. So.
I'm looking at about 2 to 3 years out on this, but it'll be, there will certainly be a public showing. It'll be available to the Bristol Historical and Preservation Society, the Rhode Island Historical Society, the local libraries, local schools, and hopefully, YouTube, Vimeo, and if I'm lucky, maybe Netflix and PBS. So we'll see.
Wow. Well, we should
At least that's what I'm aspiring to. So.
The best of luck. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
We want to be in it.
We have a motion and a second to refer to the 4th of July committee. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Chairman and members of the Town Council, is the appointment section of your agenda for tonight. We have the Waypoisett Trust with term to expire in January 2021. You have Stephen Johnson currently serving, who wishes to be reappointed, and Gary Leib, who had been interviewed by the council a while ago for a previous position, who would also like to be considered for appointment.
So how many positions?
Just one.
Oh,
There's
one.
one.
Okay. So I make a motion to reappoint Steve Johnson.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion.
I just have a quick question. Is there a reason why it's limited to 3, or could we add another person?
We looked at this, right?
Yeah, we did, and what was determined, and I shared this with some of the individuals on that board, is that the number of people on that board is dictated by the board. So it can expand itself if it wishes to do so. You can't do it, but it can. So
Gary, reach out to Steve Johnson and petition him, and potentially we can add an extra spot. And
right, and I know that there was a desire to contact them all and find out why there wasn't being meetings and stuff like that, and there was a lot of difficulty finding out exactly who was on that board, and the person who ended up becoming the contact has since moved out of Bristol.
Gotcha.
So it's certainly worth resurrecting again, okay. And if the council would like me to do that,
yes,
I
please.
can try to reassemble that whole scenario again to determine whether or not we can convince those board members to take a more aggressive action.
Well, this leads me to a question then. I mean, if this is our representative on the board, right? Mm-hmm. These are our representatives on this board, and it's not they're not acting on our behalf and making sure there are meetings and so forth, then why are we reappointing? I know that the person that's moved out of town has been involved with this since the beginning, so I don't have a big major issue with that person. I understand that he's been there since the beginning, but if this is you're raising a potential problem, Lou, so why are we going forward? And I mean, that's what I'm saying. Why are we going forward and appointing the same person if this is our appointees and they're not doing anything?
Talking about Mr. Kemi? Mr. Kemi?
No, what are you talking about, Steve?
No. Mr. Johnson hasn't lived in Bristol for a long time. He's still been your appointee.
Right.
It was Mr. Kemi who was the other person.
Well, tell you what, why don't we stop right here? We seem to have a couple of questions that I think deserve answers. Mm-hmm. Why don't we hold off making this appointment until we do a little bit more research? And certainly Stephen Johnson, who is there right now, would continue while we make these inquiries. How's
Sounds
that?
reasonable.
Okay, beautiful.
Withdraw the motion.
Thank you.
So a motion to continue next.
So we have a motion. Can we have a motion to continue to our next meeting?
Motion so moved.
And I'd ask Lou to reach out and try to find out what's going on with that group.
I heard that in the motion.
Yeah, good. I thought so, yeah.
I did.
I think Lou wrote it into the motion.
So we have a motion and a second to continue this point to the next meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is the Planning Board. There are 2 positions to expire in April of 2022. You have Stephen Katz currently serving and Armin Bellotti currently serving, who both wish to be reappointed.
Motion to reappoint Steve Katz and Armin Bellotti to the Planning Board.
So move. Second.
So there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And finally, the Police Pension Board of Trustees, with term to expire in April 2022. You have Michael Lenarsic of 155 Ferry Road, who wishes to be reappointed.
Motion to reappoint Michael Lenartic to the Police Pension Fund Board.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This is the part that we get to every time that I say thank you. Thank you to our boards and commissions and everybody that's involved in the town, seriously, for taking time out of your day and out of your week and out of your month to serve the people of Bristol. Yes, from your family and from your friends, and hopefully you other friends that are on the board, right? We appreciate it. This council appreciates it, and the town appreciates it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Chairman and members of the Town Council, this was something discussed in an earlier motion, is the resolution for the summer camp fee. It would be the council's business to adopt this resolution.
So move.
Motion to adopt.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And the next item, item I2, this is an annual request from the Armenian National Committee of Rhode Island to fly the Armenian flag at the Town Hall on April 24th, 2019.
Motion to approve to fly the Armenian flag on April 24th, 2019.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is correspondence from Pamela Marchand, the Executive Director and Chief Engineer of the Bristol County Water Authority, regarding the pilot agreement. There's a proposed amendment to the existing pilot agreement also provided.
So Julie Gosher, our treasurer, is going to take a moment and just, did you know that, Julie? No? Lucky you. So this is in front of us. I'll start off and give you a second because I didn't tell you that in advance. This is a proposal that was approved by the other communities to remove the pilot agreement and remove the hydrant fees. So what I just said is currently we get a yearly payment from BCWA, and currently we give them a yearly payment for fire hydrants. So this is to make all of that back and forth go away, and Julie's going to give us the particulars on that.
Sure. So we did talk about this briefly at the budget hearings as well, if you remember. Currently, we're receiving about $203,000 in our pilot tax income, and we pay out about $146,000 in hydrant rental fees. So if this was to go to zero, we would lose $57,500 about. So what the proposal was and what we've budgeted for in anticipation of this is a 75%, it's a phase out over 3 years. So in the first year, you take that $57,000 potential loss, 75% of that we would receive in this upcoming budget. So that is $43,000 we'll receive. And the following year, it's 50%, brings it to $28,000. Year 3 is 25%, brings it to $14,000. And then in year 4, we would have zero. So it's easing the pain of the loss of income, net income, I should say.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that was very good. So what precipitated this? The pilot agreement has expired. And Mr. Administrator, if you could remind me, was it last year that it actually expired?
It was last year. It was a 20-year term. It expired, and now we're up for negotiation. The Water Authority agreed to extend the existing terms one more year while the 3 towns came up with a solution.
What's this council's pleasure?
Make a motion to approve the pilot program.
Phase out. The
The phase out of the pilot program. Yes. Thank you.
And they're all agreed to that. They've agreed to that, Julie?
The other communities, that is.
Yes.
in the
Yeah,
Port
and the other,
Authority?
and
Thank
just
you.
one other additional fact is that the other concern was, hydrant fees could keep going up. So at some point, there is no guarantee that the hydrant fees will be higher than the pilot amount. So it just made sense for both sides to. And that's why the other communities also have already voted on this.
Thank you for that clarity. And actually, and to that point, there's no guarantee that a pilot agreement would continue. There was no requirement of such.
Because it expired.
Right. So the combination of both. Thank you for those points.
And it was my understanding, too, with some of the documentation that they provided from the American Water Works Association, that these hydrant fees have been actually increasing. So there was a potential, a real bona fide potential that was going to be happening.
So I know we had a motion. Do we have a second on that? I'm sorry.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Julie.
The next item is item I-4, and this is from the administrator requesting council consideration concerning correspondence received regarding the Benjamin Church Senior Center lease. You have other supplemental information provided from the executive director and also the trustee of the Benjamin Church Trust.
So this is on our agenda because we received this letter as it was dated March 29th, and we thought it important to make sure that the public was aware of what was going on with this. And I'm going to just summarize this very quickly. And what it says is that the Bristol Housing Authority will not be renewing the lease for Benjamin Church building. We're talking about the yellow building. Bristol Housing Authority is the housing right behind it. There is a meeting scheduled, and it was on request of the Benjamin Church Trust and representation, including Candy Panza, from the Bristol Housing Authority for April 30th. And that meeting, if this council agrees, it would be me as representation of the council, but I think there should be another council person there, and I would suggest Tony, and here's why: is that Tony he signed the lease 5 years ago. It seemed an appropriate place. He's also the one of the liaisons to the housing authority. So. Why have a meeting? It's to take the next step, is to say, what are the next steps? Yeah. It is not to make a decision, is to come back to this council and say, these are our options. What do we want to do at that point in time? So I need a motion if everybody's amenable to that. And if you're not, please offer another solution. Offer another solution.
No, I'm in agreement. I'm in agreement.
You can.
Okay, I make a motion that we move forward with the meeting for April the 30th, hear out the various parties, and come back with, options or, for the council.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion.
So I guess one of the questions that I have about this is, will there be any stakeholders that might also be invited to this meeting, or will this be a meeting just between?
This was a meeting requested by the trust, by the Bristol Housing Authority, so it would be the Housing Authority, the town, and the trust, and that was their request. It was by their request. I didn't say they didn't want anybody else, but that was the request, to have the stakeholders there that lease the building. But that doesn't mean the conversation stops there, to be very clear. It's to hear what their thoughts are. And I skipped a couple of things in the letter. I apologize. It says our lease actually expires, say, the end of... Thank you, July 31, but they are willing to go to a month-to-month basis to help transition to another solution if necessary. So they're not saying get out. They're saying we'll go to a month-to-month if necessary. So, but that's part of the issue, is that there is no clarity here, and we want to sit with them and find out what solutions exist.
So there might be the potential for holding this meeting and then holding... Oh, am I off? Can you hear me?
Yeah, no.
I was just wondering if there would be the potential then of, at this meeting, setting up an additional meeting afterwards where there might be more people brought in.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman and Councilman Texera, I think my expectations would be just a clear, seamless plan for the seniors. If we are going to, I want to make sure whatever we're going to do, we're going to it's going to be the same or better conditions for them, and also I'd be interested to know what the timeline is, the plan and the milestone for what's being proposed. So just to give you what my expectations are.
Well put. I agree.
So, thank you.
So you're going to just bring the information back, but you're not coming back with a plan. You're
Correct.
just coming back to convey what their issues are.
That is correct. That is correct. Is there any other questions from the council? Good evening.
Hi. My name is Maria Doherty, and I'm the president of the Senior Centers Board.
Welcome.
Thank you. And it's wonderful that, everyone's meeting on the 30th, but being the people that are involved with the seniors, I would request, or hopefully, like to propose that we be part of that meeting as well. Due to the fact that we will now have seniors questioning us about the lease and what the next step is. And as a group, we try to kind of facilitate things for our seniors where they don't have to worry about anything. And I believe if we're not part of that meeting, we can't let our seniors know to not worry about it, that we will be there. We will represent them when we sit there and we talk about the lease. So I guess what I'm doing here today is just requesting the potential to be there, or someone from the board, either our director, our assistant director, someone be part of that initial meeting. Because again, like I said, our seniors are at a very delicate age where they worry about everything. So if we're going to start worrying about where the senior center is going to be, if the lease is going to be renewed, our job is to make sure that we let them know that it's okay. We're just starting the conversation. No one's throwing us out. We're going to go month to month until we figure this out. But if we're not participating in that meeting, how do we let them know that we're going to have a voice there that evening? So again, what I'm doing here tonight is just requesting that we be part of that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just make one comment, though? I just, only because I noticed in the letter from Ralph Kinder that it said, this affects you because of the provision of senior services. I think Maria just summed it up. I think whether you're at the meeting or you're not, and that's, other people requested this meeting, so I'm not here to make a determination one way or the other, but I think you can assure them everything you just said, because the town council and the town government is not in any way, shape, or form going to let senior services go by the wayside. So, I don't think that people should start to worry. I don't think people should be, doing alarms, whether it's in that building, whether it's another building, however it's delivered, senior services are always going to be there. And I think that this is one of those things where people can start to worry about something that doesn't need to be worried about, because the town's not going to let people not have their services. There's always going to be a lunch site. There's always going to be services. So I just think people need to take a breath about this and see what this is all about. I think this came as a surprise to all of us when we got this email, and it was sent to us by the executive director of the Housing Authority, and it was I don't know about the timing of it, but it was a little bit shortly after we'd had a discussion about some of this at the budget hearing. So I think you can assure, whether you're there, you're not assured or not, you need to assure the seniors that ask you that there's going to be services and that they shouldn't worry about that. And there's going to be, just same thing here. That we all have our own opinions on this. Some of us have been on the council long enough to have stated the opinions. I want to know, I don't want these gentlemen making any decisions until we're all part of it. And I would imagine there would be a workshop following something, I would guess, right?
I'm smiling because I agree, that's why there's 2 counselors, not 3 counselors, because that would be a quorum, obviously, number 1. Number 2, well stated, Mary, that services, no one should worry, because this council has committed to and will commit to. There is zero backward space on that one. We are moving forward. We continue to move forward. So the seniors that you're speaking to,
and I agree.
Certainly make sure that they know that that's not going to go away.
The town's been wonderful helping us, do what we need to do for the seniors. I'm not disagreeing with any of that. But again, it's just the fact that, when you hear that the lease is up, they do get worrisome. We deal with our seniors day in and day out. We hear the questions. So we're there every day, and we know what tomorrow will bring. And I'm just here representing them. And again, just requesting that we be part of the beginning of those conversations. That's it. But again, the town's been wonderful. We tell, the seniors know that. They recognize that. But it's just, it's a little worrisome at times. A lot of them do know that we depend on grants, and if we don't have a lease, it's tough to apply for grants. So there's a lot of little pieces that kind of fall into place. But again, they know that the seniors, the town is committed to the seniors, and that's not going to go anywhere. But again, the request is just to be part of the beginning of the conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. Certainly, Tony and I will convey that. So.
Well, I don't see anything in here, though, that would seem to suggest that, there wouldn't be the possibility of having somebody from the senior community or from Benjamin Church to be a part of that meeting.
So I can't speak for the other parties, nor will I. They're not here. This was informational only. The idea behind having this on the agenda was to make sure that the public knew that the lease would not be renewed. And then there was a subsequent, as you saw, the letter from Benjamin Church Trust, and then also a conversation with the Housing Authority asking for the meeting with the three parties that I've already mentioned. So I'm following that, but I think it was well put by my colleague, Mary Perella, that obviously all this information will be shared. Nothing happens without the council approval on it, which means it's public conversation. So that public conversation will happen, and certainly Tony and I will convey the request that we just heard this evening. So, but I don't speak for the trust, I don't speak for the authority, nor will I. So, but I'm happy to convey the request. So what's this council's pleasure? We have a motion and a second.
We made a motion, right?
So, in Aaron, if there's I'm certainly open to another possibility if there is one, because I don't know of one at this point.
Well, can I make a motion to amend the?
No, because we have a motion on the floor in a second, so we'd have to vote on that one first. So.
Okay.
But if it's certainly discussion time, so if you wanted to share another thought before we took that.
One possibility would be to make an amendment to reach out to some stakeholder from the senior community to add them as part of this meeting so that they can be part of the conversation, the initial conversation.
I'm sure it's the fact that they're not party to the lease.
Did everyone hear that? What's their thoughts on it? For myself, I'm okay moving forward with this and asking them, because if they're willing, then there's no council action that requires their willingness. As long as they're fine with it, and if they're not, then they're not. I can't control them.
So there will be an effort to reach out to
we said
these
that.
other stakeholders.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, happy to do it.
Okay.
So.
I mean, as long as we're going to have true transparency and that communication is going to get back as Maria asked for, I'm fine moving forward.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. And we'll feed back that information as we get
Great.
it. Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is item I-5. This is also from the Administrator. Request that the Council considers sending a letter to the Rhode Island Department of Transportation regarding Metacom Avenue Center turn lane.
Mr. Administrator, could you speak on this real quick?
Sure. It's the pilot program with the turn lane between Bayview Avenue and Chestnut Street. It's been over a year. It was implemented November 17, so it's well over a year. We got recommendations from our department heads. They were in favor. No major obstacles with having that third turn lane. So I'm recommending that the council consider sending a recommendation to the Rhode Island DOT to make that turn lane permanent going forward, and also consider extending the turn lane north to Gooding Avenue, where the sidewalks on both sides of Metacom Avenue.
I make a motion that we support the administrator's request and forward communication to Rhode Island DOT.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Actually, just 2 seconds. I think it's wonderful. Anybody that drives on Metacom, I didn't say you can go fast, but you can certainly move at rush hour where it wasn't that way before. So I think it's a wonderful addition, and it's just paint. So we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is from the Director of Community Development regarding an open space donation from Joseph G.A. Riccio Jr. for land adjacent to Silver Creek Assessors Plat for lots 14 and 46.
So, Mr. Administrator, did you want to speak on this? I know that Diane Williamson isn't. Oh, Chris, I'm sorry. Who would it be you, Mr. Administrator, to speak on this?
I'll take it.
Okay.
Director Williamson is in communication with the Riccio family. The family owns approximately 8 acres on the north end of Wood Street. It's part of Silver Creek. The family would like to donate that property to the town of Bristol to be a green belt area. And there's some specifics where the town would have to maintain a educational platform built by the town and name it in memory of Mr. Joseph Riccio, who was a town engineer for many years in Bristol. So we'd really like to accept this property with a great deal of gratitude. And
I think this is outstanding.
Yeah, we're really lucky.
So to give everybody kind of perspective, this is Vets Park area and Dapont Landscaping, that whole area at the end of Wood Street, or kind of going up from there. So it's about, as the administrator said, about 8 acres, 8+ acres. The Riccio family is offering it to the town at pretty much zero cost. I say pretty much because, as the administrator pointed out, there's a education area that needs to be built in just a platform, and also there's closing costs involved with all of that. And if this council agrees, it would seem appropriate that we accept this gratefully, right, and also refer to the solicitor to work with the other attorney to make sure that the real estate deed is correctly taken care of.
Good. I was just going to recommend you include the motion that I get to work with the Riccio family and their legal counsel in terms of the conditions in the deed, and I want to compare them to other things we've done.
So moved.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
The next item is from the Economic Development Coordinator regarding this Community Development Block Grant annual application. The resolution authorizing the CDBG application is provided.
Chris. I
Good
asked you
evening.
too early. It's this time that I needed information, right?
This time, yes, this time.
Please, sir, share it with us.
So, as part of this year's CDBG application, we are requesting funding for 3 public facility improvements here in our Wood Street neighborhood. So, the 3 projects we're going to be focusing on this year is a streetscape improvement for 4 of our streets. So, that includes Rock, Ryan, Shaw's Lane, and Franklin Street from Buttonwood up to Metacom Avenue. So this year, the area of eligibility for this particular grant program actually extended. So it went west all the way over to Metacom between Bayview and Mount Hope Ave. So we were able to get a little bit more funding for some projects that we were really liking to do here in the town. The other 2 projects we were hoping to focus on and put applications in for are elevator installations at the Byfield School and the Wally School. This is something that, as we look towards the long-term occupancy in these buildings and the reuse, it's something that they really do need elevators in them to make them fully usable by the public. So the total amount we're going to be requesting is just under $1.1 million.
So, Chris, on the Byfield School, it talks about a lift as opposed to an elevator. So that's it's a lift like at St. Mary's. Is that what you're thinking of?
I'm not familiar
Not an
with...
elevator, right?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with St. Mary's. I know that the installation of it, they were looking at that back entry where the current stairwell is. That's something that when the funding came in, we would have our engineers look at it and see how it would...
It's super slow. Like, is there a reason why a regular elevator can't be put into there?
That was something that when we reached out to Brewster Thornton for their assessment of the building, I know that they had done one a couple years ago when we first looked at installing an elevator. That was their recommendation. I can go back to them and seek additional clarification as to why they chose that one.
It says it's a Lula, light use, so it's not as fast as a commercial elevator, but the price is significantly less than like a commercial building elevator. But it's not one of those chair lifts. It's a...
No. And Pete is laughing, and making me laugh. We know St. Mary's has one of those, and it is like, it's not a chairlift. It is really, really.
If you want to go to the 11 o'clock
Really
mass,
slow.
you show up at 10 o'clock mass, right? Yeah. Okay. All
To
right.
make it, for an example, the
When it works. Yeah, when it works.
9
Tony knows too.
the building officials building has a lift, a Lula lift. It's slow, but it's a regular elevator with closing doors.
Oh, it
it's
is?
just
Okay.
much slower. The mechanics are much
Oh,
different.
so it's not the open kind of thing?
No, no.
So it looks like an elevator. It just takes a while to get there, is that? Okay.
A little bit longer, right.
Chris, just a bit of correction. You said under or just a little bit over $1 million?
Under. So the total amount comes to $1,093,757.50.
So it's over $1 million by a little bit.
Yeah.
Did I say 1.1? Did I say
No. You
Okay.
had said under. No, that's okay. We got it.
So I think this is outstanding. I think that focusing on places like Shaw's Lane, improving that neighborhood and how it abuts the what used to be Kaiser, right? Cleaning up that whole area in Shaw's Lane. I mean, it's just I think it's outstanding, along with everything else that was proposed. So, what's this council's pleasure?
So move to forward to authorize the signature of the application and forward.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Chris, when do we find out if we're successful?
End of the summer, I believe it's going to be mid-August is when.
Thank you.
Chris, can I just ask you one quick question? Remember last year there was a significant delay in getting this information? Do they anticipate anything like that happening again? Because we had...
So this year, they moved up the application window and actually narrowed it significantly.
Okay.
They did recognize the fact that it took a long time to process the applications. I think that they didn't realize exactly how many they were going to get from us. So this year, they have assured us that we're going to hear back in a more timely manner.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is item I-8, and this is provided by the Bond Council. These are the periodic borrowing resolutions.
Julie, did you want to speak to this?
Happy to just briefly go over the projects. I know we've been discussing them during our five-year capital plan update and also during the budget. These projects were represented in the budget, so the debt service that we are budgeting for includes these. So we have about $2.4 million for roads and sidewalks. We have $400,000 for open space, about $235,000 for drainage. Independence Park and seawall repairs, we have $240,000, and then we have a big list of equipment for DPW, including the bins for the automated trucks, a trash and a recycling truck, some pickup trucks, dump trucks, stake body. We're trying to really make an effort to get that fleet up to in better shape. I'll leave it at that. And then we also have some sewer department equipment, including a screener, mixer, and some chlorination equipment. So it's a wide variety of much-needed items, and the bonds should sell in May if you support the resolution.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Motion to accept the borrowing resolution.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And the next is from the town administrator. This is I-9, request for council consideration to send a letter to the Rhode Island Department of Transportation requesting a public presentation regarding the Silver Creek Bridge replacement project. You have other information provided by the Harbor Commission.
So I'm going to start this one. Wow. Lots and lots of conversation has happened. There's been multiple meetings with DOT going back quite a while, emails, telephone calls. So this is on the agenda because the next step was necessary. The administrator and myself, DPW Director, Diane Williamson, Community Development, Ed Tanner, and others have gone to multiple meetings going back a little while with DOT. This Silver Creek Bridge is being proposed to be replaced. It needs to be, there are issues with it. It is old, that's what they're telling us, and it is time that it needs to be replaced. Their goal this year is to do utilities, and next year to actually replace the bridge itself. Why is this on the agenda? Because, quite honestly, we're frustrated. We have asked for, and we don't have, public documents. We don't have, we've asked them to do a public hearing because it's our belief, and I really believe it's this council's belief, that DOT speaks for DOT, that they're the ones that are responsible for this. There is, as I mentioned, multiple meetings, but there hasn't been public hearing. That public hearing is so we and you can hear at the same time what's being proposed, what has been looked at, what impact studies have been done, economic studies that have been done, safety impacts that have been done. If this gets closed, what does it mean? If it gets partially closed, what does it mean? That study was actually done. There was a study done for 1 lane versus 2 lane, but that's about it. Now, is there more information out there? Yeah, I think so. Do I think DOT is trying to hurt the town in any way? Absolutely not. But we still don't have the information. The next step needs to be, we need to hear it from them. We need to know what's going on. How does this affect the surrounding area? How does it affect EMS response time? How does it affect police time? And there's been no discussion like that. So that doesn't mean there hasn't been discussion with them. And I want to say it one more time. I don't believe they're in cahoots to make Bristol a worse place. But this concern of this council and the administrator and the town is that we can't have, for example, Medicom Ave and Silver Creek being worked on at the same time. That's a potential of actually happening. We have 2 ways in and out of this community. We've had multiple conversations, and I'll harken back to bridge tolls. And we talked about how bridge tolls would affect. That's not even construction, right? I didn't include in here plans for Mount Hope Bridge to be worked on and how that affects. So why am I sharing it like this? This council and the administrator are quite concerned about this, and I can tell that you're concerned. A lot of people have reached out to me, businesses have reached out to me and said, you know what this is going to do to us? What we need to know is, was this the best way to handle it? Was there another couple of opportunities looked at, and why weren't they the best ways to go? What's the timeline that is most beneficial? There has been some homework done by the town in regards to meals and beds taxes to see when the busiest times of the year are, but that's just part of it. There's a lot more. We don't make the ultimate call for DOT, but we certainly have a lot of input on this, and we know this town intimately, and we know that a closure of that for however long would be very, very, very concerning for a multitude of things, and I'm going to start off with safety, and I think that's where I'll end. I think we're all in the same place on this, so this is here so we can officially take the next step and say we need a public hearing. So we have asked that of DOT. They haven't said straight no, but they have been reluctant. Mr. Administrator, you think that's a nice way to put that, reluctant to have a public hearing on this? Okay.
Yes.
So that's, I'm hoping that I caught that in a nutshell. We want to take the next step on this. Their next goal is to put this out to bid. There is a meeting scheduled at DOT with the director on April 23rd, and then from this agenda item, what brought that to the next step. So it's already working. So our next step is to sit with our reps and our senators at this meeting and say, where are we here? We want to get clear black and white and then come back to this town, not on behalf of DOT, but have DOT speak directly to what they're considering, what they're not considering. So one last piece. In no way, shape, or form am I suggesting that there hasn't been conversations with them about this, but my best analogy is that we know we're going to build a house. We just don't know if it's a colonial, if it has attached garage, does it have a pool in the back, does it have a fence? We don't know any of that. And we need to know that before anything moves forward. We understand that it's going to affect businesses. We understand it's going to affect residents. Sometimes they're the same people. we wanted you to know what was going on with this. This was on behalf of the administrator to put it in front of the council, but we need DOT to tell what's going on so we can have open dialogue about this. So first, this is not a public hearing, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to let people speak, but we need to be brief on this because it wasn't advertised that way, but I'm going to ask my colleagues to speak first. Please.
You know, it's very interesting you bringing that up because, and that not the willingness or the lack of willingness, you know, to hold a public forum here in Bristol. I know when they worked through the project in the downtown area, they were very transparent, they were very helpful, very collaborative. They came to town various times to address, you name it, from lighting to the curbing to the trees. Yes, oh yes, I remember that one. It ended up costing us big dollars. But anyway, but with that being said, they were very cooperative. So I'm very surprised they're not stepping up. You know, and like you said, we have to be cautious. I mean, we're not saying that they haven't engaged in conversation with us, but not to the extent that they need to.
I skipped something. I'm sorry. If the town of Bristol was doing this, we would handle it like we handled Ferry. We had public hearings. We had public workshops. We went out to with the residents and showed them what was going on. We had signs everywhere talking about how it's going to affect, when it's going to affect, why it's going to affect, when we start, when we end. Do I believe all of those things can happen with DOT? Yeah, I actually do. And I don't, in any way, shape, or form, think that they're trying to work against us. But so far, this has been quite frustrating. So to get to this point, one more example, I promise. There has been lots of inconsistent information, asking when can we talk about this, and we were told 2021 is when this project's on the TIP program, and then a recent email came over saying it's too late, we're going to already put it out to bid. You can't do that. You can't do that with the lives of anybody, and it's not just Bristolians that go through Bristol, it's everybody that goes through Bristol. I care about Bristolians, and my colleagues care about Bristolians, but that's what's going on with that. But please, ma'am, you wanted to share your thoughts.
Yes, I'm Jen Cavallaro from the Beehive.
Welcome.
And I'm informally been asked to speak for the businesses because we only got wind of this last week. And we were told that the plan is to close right after the 4th for 6 to 8 weeks, maybe longer, Route 114 at Sip and Dip or at Silver Creek. So especially for the restaurants, those particular months, that's it for us for our season. So we're very concerned about the timing. We're very concerned about the consultation. And there's a lot of back and forth going on here, but I do have a copy of an email from Nicole Pope, who is the
legislative liaison for DOT.
Right. Yeah. And she says in the email that the Rhode Island Department of Transportation met with the town of Bristol on numerous occasions about this project and the timeline, and approval was given by the town to proceed.
Yeah, and we disagree. So, because there's no signature, and more specifically, it would need all of the things that we've already talked about. Point of clarity on what you just shared is that it is not going to close this year. What they shared with us was utility repairs and improvements this year, which is not a closure of the road, and the proposal that they've said to us most recently was that it would close next year. And we disagree with that, just so we're clear. So
you disagree with the closure or the timing of the closure?
Okay, yes. Honestly, both. I don't have enough information to agree with anything. I don't think my colleagues do either. So we have met with them, and that the administrator, more than I, but I've been at a few of these meetings at the State House, and they expressed timelines to us. They said we can do it after the 4th, we can do it in September, which ones do you prefer? So the offer so far from DOT was a timeline, not what they were going to do, how it was going to impact, as you mentioned, businesses, how it's going to impact police and fire response to these things, environmental impacts. So we haven't heard any of that. So, and besides that one exception that I did mention, that they did, PAR Engineering, and Mr. Administrator, please correct me on this, did a study about the one-lane stoplight and how it would affect traffic backups in that area. That's the one that I do know about. If there's more, I'm sorry, I don't.
Just to be clear, that what the businesses in general are feeling is that closing the street completely is disastrous. If you're going to close right after the 4th for 2 months, is completely disastrous for us. If we could have our choice, it would be spring, early spring, late March, April, May. We can all kind of survive that hit if we have to. But summer, I don't know if I could make it through the next winter if I don't have that, the summer income. Because especially, most of us have to budget the whole year according to our busy months.
What you just shared is exactly why we want a public meeting with DOT. So you can express that to us and to DOT. So you can say, this is when it hurts the least. And I think we can all agree on that. If it needs to be replaced, obviously we need to do it. We don't want it to have an emergency failure and then we've all lost choices at that point. It doesn't seem that way. There was a recent test done, and again, Mr. Administrator, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but a recent test, they thought it was worse than it is. It still needs to be replaced, but I understand that it is not in as dire shape as they initially thought. That's not a suggestion that it doesn't need to be replaced, but it's not impending doom, or at least it didn't feel that way.
But
I agree with you.
Can we count on your support?
My goodness,
in
yes.
terms of influencing the timing?
Yes.
Even if it means potentially we had a thought that maybe they could start in the spring and then stop for the 4th, come back in the fall. That has apparently been done in another town for another project, and apparently the Department of Transportation has done that kind of thing before. It seems to me that there are many ways that we could try to work this in to everybody's schedule, but we need your support on this.
You have our support because it's not just businesses. It's all the things that we talked about.
That has not felt that way because we didn't know that for months this has been talked about. Nobody has actually contacted the businesses and said, hey, what do you think if we close the Route 114 in the middle of the summer?
And we agree with you. So I think I shared a little bit earlier, said DOT needs to speak for DOT.
Right.
One of the concerns that we've had, and it's been expressed through each and every meeting, is that we need a public, either as a document or, honestly, I prefer a public forum, so you can express your thoughts directly to them. It's their project, not ours, but we need to have input on this. As I mentioned, we have an intimate knowledge. They don't have that. That doesn't mean they don't know the area, but not as well as we do. So.
Right. So I think this audience is pretty much all business owners. Everybody's extremely concerned about it. As long as we know that we have your support, if we can get them to a meeting and we can have an influence. I would like to ask a question about what is actually already planned for this year. I know it's just utility work, but I want to know when they're planning to do that and how long it's going to happen. Does anyone know?
I'm going to refer that to the administrator, if I may.
Yeah.
Thank you. First off, I want to say that we're elected. We represent our constituents. We're trying to balance our relationship with DOT and getting something that I think everyone here wants done, which is a safe bridge, completed. So we've been working with them since July of 2017, on and off meetings, and our communications all along have been to explore all alternatives. At one of the emails, one of the meetings, the minutes are stating that the project is currently in the tip for construction in 2022. So how it got pushed up this quickly, I'm not exactly sure, but we asked for impacts during these meetings. We discussed impact studies, the different options we were given that they said that the studies would lead them to for the bridge closure. One of them is a complete closure, which would be one season, and they were timing it between either July and Labor Day or Labor Day to November 15th. The reason why they can't do it sooner in the spring or later, it's because of the gas supply. They can't lower the gas supply, so they have to do it during warmer weather. We've been somewhat uncertain at times as to when this project was going to actually happen. We have documentation stating from us that this certainly cannot take place any time during the Medicum Avenue project. However, most recently, we're learning that this utility work may happen this summer,
right.
which is in total conflict with any meeting that we ever had with them. And I know you mentioned a particular person, the legislative and government liaison director. I'm going to read an email that I got. It's very recent. After we understood that DEM sent a notice to our Harbor Commission about this, we asked on a conference call to the project engineer, DOT needs to come down and they need to explain to the public what the plans are with this. That request was not honored. I sent an email to that director. I have a couple of issues that I was hoping you could help with. Is Rhode Island DOT going to have a presentation for the public explaining the Bristol Silver Creek Route 114 project? And then I asked about the bike path with the temporary signs there. The response was this, and this is important, so that you understand that your town officials here are doing the best we can to work with DOT. This is the response on March 22nd of this year. Steve, with regards to the Silver Creek project, here is the answer I received. This project is in the 10-year plan identified as STIP ID 6005 for 2021. Until we get closer to that date, we do not have any specific plans for presentations in place. As we move closer to 2021, we can consider this request. I'll find out more about Papa Squash Road and the bike path, and we'll get back to you shortly. I've never heard back. I've since called DOT, and I've sent communications numerous times since then. So the communications have not been the best. We've met with them. We think that they pushed the project forward much sooner than they originally planned on it when we first started meeting with them. We're asking for public hearings. I don't have good information to provide for the public. I enjoy giving information to the public. I think that's one of my responsibilities, but I'm not going to give false information. It's not the town of Bristol's project. I'd be happy, as I said to DOT, to stand shoulder to shoulder with them and explain what we think is going to be best for the community with your input. But right now, I don't have good information. We have one study to show what the traffic signal would do if we left one lane open, and even that, it said, at the end of that conclusion, it said there would be long queues and long backups of traffic, and it would last 2 seasons.
No kidding. Right.
So
later on in the email that I quoted to you before, which is dated April 11th from Nicole Pope to June Speakman and various other people you may have got, and Susan Donovan, later on in that email, they say the current plan is to advertise before the end of April 2019 to start construction this year. The first activities will be utility relocation and some prep work for the bridge replacement. For the 2019 construction, the roadway will remain open with lane shifts, but 1 lane in each direction will be maintained. So we need to know when that is.
Yeah.
It doesn't say here when that is, and how long that's going to be for. And they say they're going to keep the bike path open, which I might add is critical to all of us. And then it says that Bristol officials will be closing the bridge July the 5th, 2020 for the full reconstruction activity.
See, that's unfair. It's not a town of Bristol decision to close a state bridge, and it's unfortunate that DOT is putting the pressures of the community on its elected officials when we cooperate with them, and we have been right along, to provide them good information the best that we can. But we're still waiting for the time when we have a complete package to put together, a public presentation, and we have all the conceivable impacts that, we have no construction plans, we have no traffic detour plans, we don't have the impact as to what's going to happen if it's closed. We have the one, what's going to happen if we do the alternate traffic. So it's very early. We have a meeting with Director Alviti, Director of the Chief Engineer, on Tuesday the 23rd. And at that time, we're also going to meet with our state reps up at the State House. But what we're going to continue to ask for...
So none of us know anything for real yet, right? So
we don't have good, accurate information to share with the public, and I'm not comfortable sharing information that may later on be found to be false. As soon as I have good information that I can give to the public, all I can say right now is we have been cooperative with DOT. We've been providing them answers to the best of our ability. If they asked us between two options, we may give a recommendation what we thought. However, we do not approve, do not have the authority, especially myself, have the authority to close a state road and shut off a complete area of town. First of all, it would be irresponsible, knowing the way our fire department is set up. We have 3 elementary schools in downtown Bristol. It'd be irresponsible for me to unilaterally say we're closing the downtown. In the end, is that possible? That might have to happen. It would, but it's going to take a lot of consideration. It's going to take studies, and I don't think DOT, personally, I don't think they're there yet to make that decision. And again, the public has not weighed in yet. And as the chairman said, when we altered traffic on Ferry Road, we had public hearings. We were here with the engineers. I was here. We listened to the neighbors. We advertised. I find it hard to believe that this is not going to happen, closing a main route through when there's only 2 other north-south routes through Bristol. I find it hard to believe.
Well, you can understand that from the business's point of view, we got the impression Mr. Vitale came to a merchant meeting and Diane Williamson came to a Harbor Commission meeting where they basically informed us of what seemed like a fait accompli. And that is why everybody has been so up in arms, because there did not seem to be any consultation. That being said, we're totally in favor of a public hearing of this sort with Rhode Island Department of Transportation, and we hope that you will support us. We will turn up, as I am sure the public will, and it will all eventually get thrashed out. So if anybody else would like to speak, I don't need to hog the microphone the whole evening. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman.
Of course.
Just, understood very clearly your frustration, but as already pointed out by the administrator and the chairman, you got to be careful what information you're receiving. If it's not from the direct source, if it's not coming from us and from the state directly, you got to be very careful. When it's going through different channels, sometimes people get a little upset and start making some statements without the facts. So please be cautious and be patient, because as you see, the chairman and the administrator certainly will be meeting with the the state officials, and certainly they should gather additional information. And as the administrator does quite often, he will share that information through, the means that are necessary, as well as we'll do it at the council meeting.
I think it's fair to say that, there are meetings that are going on the day-to-day basis with the administrator, and our council chair may attend some of those meetings, but most of us do not know a lot of the details either. And so it's not been presented to us as council people. There aren't any real details that we've heard. We just hear bits and pieces as this unfolds, just same way that you are, is like what the project may be. I think it's fair to say that certainly we would be advocates for the people of Bristol for safety and for the businesses, that they not be cut off in the middle of summer. That doesn't make any sense. We would advocate that, whether I'm sure that Steve and Nathan do that, and whatever meetings that they do attend, and if they came to us and did this presentation, we would all be saying the same thing, even if you were not there. So we understand the situation, cutting off our downtown area in the peak season. So I think we would be advocates for your position, and I think people just need to understand that. We don't really know the details yet. So, is that fair to say? I think
that is
fair to say.
Perfectly fair. Please, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Marianthe Barakos, and I'm here on behalf of the Beach House. In early December, the DOT reached out to us to have a meeting. 3 individuals met with us on December 11th at our establishment to tell us that they will be using a portion of our parking lot. Told us that they will be using a portion of our parking lot for over a year during this utility transition phase. This summer will be the utilities, and next year with the complete closure of 114. We didn't have an option. We didn't have the ability to negotiate a date. We were told that it was the town's recommendation that July and August were appropriate months to do this construction. And I honestly thought that they were joking. Like, I honestly thought that they walked in knowing the history of Bristol and knowing what the 4th of July is in our town. When they said, oh, and we're planning this July and August, I actually giggled and I said, oh, you've got to be kidding, right? And they were not kidding. So they're planning on utilities this summer using our private parking lot for our customers to do this construction. So we're going to be losing our spaces for over a year. They are forcing us to sign a lease. It's a mandatory lease for their use for pedestrians to come off the bike path, to come across the street and to get across the other way, with the full knowledge that the full closure will take place right after the 4th next year. So I am imploring the council to do whatever is possible to shift the date. I think that it was unreasonable for that recommendation of July and August in the first place. I don't know who and when that recommendation was made, but I met with 3 individuals. David Walsh is one of them, Robin Innocent, and Colleen Kerr were the 3 individuals that met with us. And they stressed that the decision was made, the date will most likely not be shifted, and those are the facts.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm wondering what else I've said when I wasn't around, because that's very frustrating, and I don't mean me personally, but the town.
I don't know why the town would recommend July and August, and why they would say that.
Thank you for sharing that.
Could you please repeat those 3 names?
Yes, David Walsh, Colleen Kerr, Kerr, and Robbins, Robens, last name Innocent, Innocent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I think I could shed some light on that about the summer closing.
Please.
When we were one of the meetings, the question was posed: what are your busiest times if the road had to be closed? What are your busiest times downtown? And we looked at our Department of Revenue numbers for food and beverage taxes, and actually June was higher than July. So they said you can't do prior to 4th of July because we may not be done in time for the parade. But we can certainly start after 4th of July, and seeing that June was after, by our admission saying and providing the information, it was taken as a step that we approved of the road being closed. We never approved of the road being closed. It was, again, we're much too early into this to approve a road closure, even if we could. So for DOT to be stating that we approved it, no. And I asked them to provide that documentation where the administrator signed off on a road closure or presented that to the council. That didn't happen. Did we have multiple discussions and provide them with information? Yes. I think that was used to our disadvantage.
But Steve, wouldn't it be the case that, like, if I imagine because of the 4th of July events leading up to the 4th, so I understand why June would be one of the highest. I'd imagine that July and August would be the 2nd and 3rd highest months. So, I mean, where would they get that from? I mean, and not look to the fall to be able to, I mean, even the fall, early fall is like a busy time around here, too.
Welcome.
Good evening.
Well, they make stuff up, I guess.
Linda Arruda. Some refer to me as, that old lady that has that place on the corner of Hope and Court. I am here. If you are taking the tax revenue as a documented amount to figure a road project, I want to know what the departments of community development and economic development have in their intimate knowledge of our percentages of business that are done throughout this year. I do not think that your departments of community development and economic development have even
darken the doorways of any businesses in this town, especially on 114, to determine what are your highest earning pieces in your year. I have never had that solicitation from your economic development director, and I'm only one. So if you are using bed and beverage tax as your only criteria, what kind of appreciation do you have for these people who keep this going, some for 23 years, some for not quite as long, but I bet if I went to economic and community development tomorrow, they could not give me those figures. I think there needs to be a public meeting, but I think if you are offering only a tax revenue on beverage and bed, and you haven't seen any of us to ask to share, not numbers, but percentages that you can develop from your business information, I'm appalled. I'm appalled that you can't even do that. And you want a public meeting? You better show up at those public meetings with stats. I don't think you can provide that. And I'm appalled. For 23 years in being in business in this town, I have never had anybody in economic or community development know anything about what the business picture is in this town, never mind just 114. I happen to know that somebody made an inquiry about some percentages and stats, and they said, oh, we don't know that. I just told two people in this room, I'm going to shoot my mouth off tonight, and I don't care. There is such a lack of caring. You're elected. You're supposed to be directing these people to have that information at their fingertips. So when DOT says, oh, well, we can do that. I'm going to share a statistic. I can tell you, in my business between May and September, in 2018, my figure was 46.75 of my yearly gross income. And you're going to close 114 South? I think there are other people who would do the same here for you tonight. But I'm appalled. I'm appalled that your community development department cannot put their finger on these numbers. And I'm appalled that you only use tax revenue. What? What about the day-to-day operations, Mr. Contenti?
May I speak?
Thank you. I am not apologizing for my absolute statements tonight, because I think I've waited a long time to say these things to you. And you know what it does? It gets a public meeting, and we do another dog and pony show. We already put up with reconstruction of sidewalks and the roadway. And we had a lot of input. But do you know what? For that, nobody ever came to us to ask us what our loss was. Not one. And there have been other people sitting in your places. Not one. Community development never made that inquiry. Isn't community development supposed to be about the community? Shouldn't I be able to go and plug my finger on a screen or ask a person to provide me with some statistics? Come on. I'm long in the tooth. I've said it. I'm not happy. And I think that these people deserve to have as much input, and your community development department and your econ development better find out what the numbers are. Thank you.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Richie Carenti from Bristol.
You don't have to lean. You can pick that up.
Oh, okay. Good. It's tough to follow that one up. But I wasn't going to say anything, and then while I was up here, I just can't help but hear a lot of the DOT hasn't been upfront with you guys. You know, they haven't done their part. They've even haven't been honest with you guys. They've said you guys have agreed to things that you haven't agreed to, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is that common in this kind of scenario?
No.
Okay. I wrote down the other question so I won't forget. The two questions I have are, is there anything set in stone about this project? Yes or no?
We don't know.
We don't know, but we don't believe so. So clarity point on that is they were supposed to go out to bid, correct me, Steve, I'm sorry, but it's the end of this month for utility work, but nothing for next year.
Because I think that's kind of a concern for us. Like, nobody even knows what's set in stone, what's definitely going to happen, what's not definitely going to happen, what's negotiable, what we can talk about, what we can't talk about. So that was one of the concerns. The other concern I have is, and this only goes back to the DOT not being trustworthy from what I'm hearing. And again, very new to all this. You guys have been dealing with this, but they haven't been honest with you. They haven't been upfront with you. What would it take for us to do our own evaluation of the bridge?
I don't know the answer to that question. We'd certainly look into it, though.
Yeah, we could look I'm just curious. I mean, would anybody be shocked if the bridge was fine and didn't really need to be closed down for this amount of time? I really don't know.
Happy to look into it.
Yeah, I really don't know myself. It's just one of those things where all I'm hearing is they're not being honest or upfront with us. They're throwing you under the bus. They're hurting our businesses without even taking the time to find out what it's going to do to us. Maybe they don't know everything, and maybe they're wrong about the bridge. And I'm just curious, have we looked into what it would take to find that out?
I don't know, but I'm certainly happy to look into it.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it, guys.
Of course. Kevin?
I think a partial answer to his question was that they did do a weight evaluation and they did reduce the weight for the bridge, so there is some concern on their part. To what degree that weight restriction is and how long, the bridge is good for, that's a question I couldn't answer. But it would suggest that there was a superstructure evaluation underneath to take a look at what is failing. What the report says, I have no idea.
Good evening. Keith Maloney. How are you? I have 2 points to make. Number one is for the fact that there appears to be very little knowledge of the specifics of what's planned. What I think is most frustrating to our business owners is that 2 representatives of the town made very specific statements about what was going to happen. Diane Williamson at a Harbor Commission meeting, which I attended, and Chris Vitale at a business, the Downtown Merchant Association meeting, both made very specific comments that after the 4th of July, 8 to 10 weeks, full closure, done. Done. Secondly, I made an effort to help put some data together because, of course, you don't want us to come up here, anybody to come up here and just say, well, those are my busiest months, and not be able to substantiate it. So I asked a lot of downtown business owners if they would please share with me the percent of annual sales that they do by month for the full year. Okay. I don't want to know dollars. I don't want any proprietary information. I'm not even going to put your names on the list. So I have copies for you here ladies and gentlemen, of that information, it is very clear that the best time of year for this to be done is in the spring. It's very clear from a business standpoint. And I do understand there may be other standpoints. But for the business owners, they do about 5% per month for the first 4 months of the year. They do 10 or more % per month for the next 8 months. Consistent, pretty consistent. It may go up to 10.5 in 1 month and 9.9 in another month, but you look at it and it's about 10% a month. And we're doing this project according to your own people in the heart of that time frame. So I offer you this as just some substantiation of what you're hearing.
People can't hear you when you're up here, so. Yeah, of course. Thank you. Thank you.
And just to finish it, she's not here, but I and Chip Cavallero were both at the Harbor Commission meeting where there was some slight discussion about the business aspects of this. And to his credit, Jim Dollins really didn't want to discuss it there. That's not their purview. They were talking about water quality, and that's all good. We understood, but he did allow us to discuss our point of view. Chip made a very significant point about the lack of communication. Why do I not know anything about this? And what Ms. Williamson said, I'll try to do better. It's a little late to try to do better. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, in defense to our Director of Community Development, she's at a conference out of state. I asked her to go to that meeting after calling the project engineer and requesting that somebody from DOT be present for that meeting, and we were denied the request. I thought it was important that we shared the little information that we had, and unfortunately, it was a mistake because obviously it may not have been entirely accurate. So that's why I say we should not be releasing information unless it's coming from DOT directly. It's their project, and I think it's unfair that our good residents here are taking their frustrations out on their own elected people. We're doing the best we can to work with DOT, and in the end, the concern here is that this bridge does get replaced because what I'm fearing is that eventually there's going to be a load test on the bridge and they're going to close the bridge, and then it's going to be 2 or 3 years with no bridge, and we're going to have to live with it. So we're trying to work the best we can with DOT. Nothing's been done yet. We're meeting with the director. We'll have more answers after Tuesday when we meet with the Director Alviti, and hopefully at this public hearing you'll get the answers that you're looking for. But I think it's unfair, especially to the council that knew very little about this. The frustration, if anything, should be taken out on the administrator, maybe the department heads. But I will tell you, I care very much about this community, and I'm working the best I can to provide accurate information. I don't have accurate information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pete Hewitt from Bristol. Just a couple of points. One, I think it's well recognized by everybody here that the business community, the small businesses, are the lifeblood of the community, as they are the lifeblood of the economy of the state. And it's been well presented that perhaps we're not the best state among the 50 states for our business friendliness. So I would not presume that the Department of Transportation, one, knows about the particularities of Bristol, Metacom, or that they even care. They're in the business of doing what they're doing. They're going to make a determination as to whether or not that bridge is safe or unsafe. And if they ever get to the point where they make the point that it's unsafe, they're going to make a decision. They may or may not even consult you fellas and ladies. So I think you need to walk into this public hearing I think with your eyes open, I mean, you've been around as long as, well, maybe not as long as I have. I've been around longer than you have, but you've been in the business of politics up close and personal. I just think you need to kind of walk into any public meeting with your eyes open, get as much data as you can from the business community, and walk in armed with facts, figures. I want you to get Donovan and Speakman and Cindy Coyne and Felag and anybody else, all the politicians. I'd like you to kind of link up with them before you have the public meeting and get them on board and tell them just what's at stake here. Metacom Avenue, as far as I'm concerned, is a mess. I got a new car, and I think it's testing my shock absorbers every time I drive up Metacom Avenue. So if anybody thinks Metacom Avenue is in good shape, it's not. I think it's a Bristol County Water Authority, and now they're tearing up street corners. I don't know what the hell they're doing. They're putting in new cisterns or something. But it's just, to me, the biggest fear is if that bridge or if that road gets shut down completely, as you, Mr. Chairman, have already pointed out, all of the safety factors, all of the concerns, all of the economic factors, I think it'll be almost a kiss of death for the town of Bristol in terms of of our economic well-being, and certainly the well-being of all our business communities. So I really think that the DOT, somebody needs to get their attention, whether it's a baseball bat to the head or what, but they need to get their attention, and that means Governor Raimondo, because Vidi, or whatever his name is, appointed. He's not elected. He doesn't have to answer to the electors. It wouldn't be the first time a major issue was decided by the politicians without going for a referendum or the townspeople of Bristol to get inputs from the townspeople of Bristol about something that's going to have a great impact on their economic survival. So I'll leave that with you.
Thank you.
It's time to, there's an expression, kick butt and take names. I expect you guys to do it.
Hello, gentlemen, ladies. My name's Joe Karen. You all know me. I have a family business downtown. Except for an 8-year hiatus, my family's been in business there for over 50 years, close to 62 at this point. My only question, I don't want to repeat what everybody else has said. My only question is, are your hands tied legally by the DOT? In other words, can they come in and just tell you exactly what they're going to do, when they're going to do it, and you have no recourse whatsoever?
Good, but
yeah, that's possible.
What's possible?
That they could come in and do it without our authorization. It's not up to us.
Knowledge.
It doesn't belong to us.
Don't they have to notify you in advance of any plans to do such things? Safety concerns have got to be important here.
So backing up, right? The reason why this is on the agenda tonight is that all of what you've said we agree with. That's why this is here. It was to get this council, actually it's not to vote to do it, because this council is completely on board on this, to take the next step. Our frustration is palpable. We've heard from you. Linda Ruda brought up some points. Others have brought up some points about statistics and all of that, and I'm going to take just a moment on that. The taxes was just one reference point. That's all it was. I understand her frustration. I'm not downplaying it, but it was a reference point, not the reference point. But I certainly understood her point. Our goal here tonight is to say that we don't like where this is. We've attempted, and we will continue to attempt to work with DOT. It is too important to have this shut down, whether it's purposeful or emergency. We want steps taken. That's why this is on the agenda. If it was to do anything else, and by the way, this council has no other benefit. It's not just the businesses. It's residences. Oh, and I didn't point this one out. I had this down. But Silver Creek Manor is right up the street. Ambulance goes in and out of there. And Providence is not the only hospital. There's Charlton. There's St. Anne's. There's Newport Hospital. Can you tell I'm in the healthcare field? So I understand. We understand. It's not I. Actually, I apologize. It's we. Katerra School. How about Sip and Dip? My goodness, has anybody mentioned Sip and Dip? Holy cow, is this going to affect them?
It's going to kill them.
But that's a great reference point, though. This council cares about this. If we didn't care, this wouldn't be on the agenda. I got to tell you something. We all care deeply. This is, let me get to the end of this. This is a part-time job for all of us. And I've gone to so many meetings in regards to this, so many conversations about why don't we have, what's the next step on this? Why can't we get this information? they're not completely blowing us off. They're not completely saying we don't want to talk to you. It's they gave two bad options. Here, pick a bad option. You want us to cut off your arm or cut off your leg? What? What about other options? What's the second best option? So that's why this is here. That's why we've taken all of this time. This is a big deal. This year, are they going to close anything? No. No. But that information that we got about agave, that's the first time I've heard that. That someone that would come in and say, we're using this. Too bad.
Yeah.
I didn't know this was Russia. Last time I checked, it's not Russia.
Okay.
So open dialogue would be great. I honestly, and that's not a finger point, I'd like to know these things. I know my colleagues would like to know these things because we'd be happy to work on your behalf to say, wait a minute, is that really right? And if it is and there's a way to get around it and it was fair, okay. But it felt very strong-armed to me, and that and other things like that are not acceptable to us. So I hope I captured that well for you.
Pretty well. Just all I would ask as a business owner at this point who has only the best interest of the downtown area of Bristol in general, doing everything we can to bring businesses and people into downtown and enjoy it, just please be as transparent as you can with us going forward. Let us know as much as you can going forward so we can be prepared for anything that might come down the pike. There has to be a plan B. We don't have any idea of what's going to happen. You don't have any idea of what's going to happen. But as soon as you know something, please let us know so we can come up with a plan B.
You got it. That's a fair request. I'm going to share one more thing on this. Steve shared a timeline. One of the to give you an idea of how, I don't know, loosey-goosey this has been, 2022 is when they said that this would even be considered for discussion. How did we get to 2019 on it? That's one of the reasons. That's one of the things we say. Why isn't this brought forward? Because when it's 3 years out and there's nothing to talk about, why are you talking about it? And then all of a sudden, we're talking about it. There's an email that went out, it's 2022, and then there's another one saying you can't talk about this, it's too late, we're going to bid it out. How is that acceptable? So we feel your frustration. I think we were very clear on this. Mm-hmm. You worded it well, but I think you speak for everybody. We want the information. You got it. You absolutely got it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Please.
I just have a quick question from.
The legal question, Tim. I was ready to speak about the.
Well, I'm going to let Tim do it, and we can get clarity on that.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to ask if Mike Ursillo could just weigh in on the beach parking lot and then the legal. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Tim.
She said this, so he must be getting paid.
So this has happened in other towns, not just Bristol. I would have to look at the statutes. My guess is there's something in state law that does allow DOT to set up or do things on private property, but at the same time compensate whoever it is at fair market value. And then if you're not happy with that fair market value, you probably need to go to court. So there's probably in the rules and regs something along those lines, because you see highway projects going on everywhere, and many, many times there's equipment or trucks or whatever on private property. So my guess is that does exist. A worst case scenario would be for me to have to go to court with a temporary restraining order against DOT. I say that's a worst case because there's the public safety issue of, oh my God, what if that bridge does fail, right? And also that doesn't make for good relations with a department that does a lot of work in this town that's good. I was talking to Steve here during some of the conversation. He is actually meeting with the director of Rhode Island DOT on Tuesday, the director. He's not meeting with one of his associates or some line person. He's going right to the top. And then also a lot of people suggest, I couldn't agree more, we need to bring our legislators in, because many times they listen to them more than they listen to town officials, right?
We're okay with that as long as they're listened to, right?
There you go. So I think we need to allow Steve to meet with the director himself on Tuesday, and I'm sure he will get the answers that we're looking for, and it'll give Steve and others the ability to provide the feedback that we've been hearing this evening about how a July through September time frame would be a complete total disaster. Let's look at October through December or something else.
So I would ask that we're going to let this, you sir, we're going to let this because Keith, you've already spoken. I want to wrap this up. So Sir, please, welcome.
Hi, Jordan Sawyer. I'm a new restaurant owner in town, and I see a lot of other restaurant owners and business owners in town here. I don't want to be redundant or reiterate what has already been said. We could all line up here and tell you how much we're going to lose by this project starting in July 5th. But one thing that I would like to add that hasn't been said is we also have employees that make hourly and rely on tips that they get during the summer in order to get through the winter, which they are the ones that are going to be significantly impacted.
Well put.
So I'd like to leave it at that.
Thank you. Thank you. As long as it's quick, Keith, okay?
This is going to be very quick. I had a conversation with Dan Goldman, who is the owner of Green River Jewelry, this week. And he has another location in Wickford. So I explained what's happening here based on what...
They had a bridge closer there recently, right?
Really did.
Yeah.
And he said that the DOT was terrific to work with. That they worked with what he called a village association, whatever that is, and that they agreed to start in the spring, close down their work before Memorial Day, and open it up again at the end of September to finish the job before the holidays, which was consistent with what their village association wanted. So it was open from Memorial Day through September, which were their critical months. He said they were wonderful. So why is that? Why aren't they so wonderful? Has there been a change at the top and we've put in Attila the Hun to run DOT? I mean, how can that be just several years ago? I think it's only 4 or 5 that happened, and that they're acting clearly. And Steve and I have been discussing this for a good year. He's been telling me I was getting to run around in a circle. It's awful. I don't know why. And let's add that no one is considering that in another 10 years, at that very spot, at high tides with sea level rise, that's going to be underwater. It's in the newest report from DEM. At high tides, that'll be underwater. And in 2050, it'll be permanently underwater. So why aren't we saying, whatever this mess is now, the structural deficiency, we had to look at a long-term solution. What's the long-term solution? Down the road, there's going to need to be a long-term solution. Maybe we'll all buy helicopters to get to Stop and Shop. Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing. We hear you. We're as frustrated, definitely as frustrated as you. What I would ask this council is, what's its pleasure? That what's in front of us is to approve, well, you know what's in front of you. What's this council's pleasure?
To
Motion, obviously the motion to approve the letter to be sent to the DOT with all the issues that have been stated tonight in regards to timing, project plan, schedule, and hopefully we can get a meeting in and get communication back to the residents.
I think also requesting like specific time frames ourselves, like the spring time frame and maybe continuation in the fall, that type of thing. I mean, and I think this information is good to have. And Lou just made a copy of it because I think Keith, you just gave it to us. I don't have any more, but Steve should take that with him as well. Lou has a copy. Yeah.
So there's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you all. You don't have to leave. It's just thank you for sharing.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is item I-10 from Councilman Texera regarding the Perry Street sidewalk construction.
Please.
Mr. Chairman, this basically is just for point of information. It has been...
Just one moment. If everyone could be quiet. Thank you. Please. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is basically for point of information. It's no action at all, but it has been brought to my attention, that there was a need for a sidewalk on Perry Street. So in reviewing our capital plan, I noticed that is incorporated in there already. So if we can just have any additional information, if anybody can provide it, I think our administrator is ready to provide some additional information just to keep the residents informed that we did not ignore. I understand some of you have been also approached by some other individuals, some of our residents. So it's good just to let them know that it is in our radar and that we're looking forward to undertake the project.
Sure. It was brought to our attention last year by a resident that the high school students that use Gutierrez Field walk from the high school at times with their backs to traffic on Perry Street. So we had planned to do the engineering this year at the same time that we engineer the Congregational Shores Lane and so forth. That's when we'll do the engineering. And we have funding in our capital budget to do the...
Part of our May borrowing, actually, is the funding for those, for Perry and Cottage Street sidewalks.
So we will be putting a sidewalk on one side of Perry Street. The engineering isn't done yet. It's too early to say what it'll look like, but we'd like to get a sidewalk on Perry Street.
Thank you.
Thank you. So could we have a motion to receive and file?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next next item is the bid 901. That's item J1. This was for the service contract for standby generators. You received 3 proposals. The first is from FNM Generator of Canton, Massachusetts, in the amount of $2,900. The next from Kraft Power Corporation of Woburn, Massachusetts, in the amount of $3,250. And finally, the last is from South Shore Generator Service Incorporated of East Wareham, Massachusetts, in the amount of $2,730.
Motion to refer to the town administrator to act in the best interest of the town.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And the second is bid 905. This is for the 11 Ursula Drive dry swale. You received 3 bids. The first from East Coast Landscaping and Construction of Portsmouth in the amount of $28,880. The second from JML Excavation Incorporated of Bristol in the amount of $26,485. And the final one is from Carty Corporation of Warwick in the amount of $35,000.
Make a motion to refer to the town administrator to act in the best interest of the town.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is the periodic report provided by Alan Klepper, the Barrington Director of the Bristol County Water Authority.
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And the next is from the town solicitor, and this is a draft ordinance for discussion regarding short-term rental registration.
So
this was my request. I'm sorry, this wasn't actually my request. This was brought up at the last meeting and made it to this agenda and probably shouldn't have, because I wanted to have a workshop on this. I think there was some, Mike, I don't know if you wanted to share something on this, but I know that this wasn't ready for Frontline. It probably...
Which is why it wasn't on for introduction. It was really to just give you all the ability to see what something like this that would address Airbnb, what it would look like.
Yeah, because I got this information, as I mentioned at the last meeting, from Karen Binder a couple of years ago. Fellow Councilor Aaron Lay and had done some research on this, going back a little bit. Chris Vitale had done some research, but it's all pieces that we haven't had any discussion. So this made it on the agenda. I appreciate the quickness in which you responded to it, but we certainly wasn't ready for conversation. So I'd ask for a receive and file, and we'll schedule the workshop to have a little bit more discussion on this.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second.
Second.
Was there any discussion? Did you want to share anything, Mike?
Sure, I love sharing things. Thank you for recognizing me. It's a brilliant idea.
I should ask you to state your name for the record.
My name
sorry.
is Mike Mello.
Thanks.
I live at 715 Hope Street in Bristol.
Thanks.
For full disclosure, I have a small Airbnb rental that I use, but that's not really why I'm speaking here. The thing that I think it's a great idea, number one. But number two, what I'd ask is that you expand the scope of this a bit, because I think that one of the concerns I suspect is the impact on neighbors and neighborhoods. I suspect the bigger concern is that there are other businesses that think that they're competing against them. But I think that there should be some central registry of rental units, but also as it relates to university rentals. Because, I mean, if people really want to maximize the profitability of their homes, what they'll do is, or what people do, and you all know this better than I do, is they'll go into a neighborhood, they'll buy a 4-bedroom house, and they'll rent out 4 rooms to college students. I'm not sure what the registration requirement is for that. I'm not sure what the fee is for that. I'm not sure where the name of the person in charge of that is. But my sense is, and I don't know the answer to that, I can research that, I'm sure you know it, but the idea of having this central repository on a website where people can say, wait a minute, there's a big problem in my neighborhood. What's happening here? And if they looked online, they could see that, oh, that's a rental unit owned by Tom Smith. It's got 5 college students in it. I can call into the police department. I just think that there needs to be some sort of central repository. It ought not be Airbnb. Airbnb is not the issue in town. Airbnb helps supplement, in my opinion, the lack of hotel space for the 6+ wedding venues we have. There's only so many wedding nights you can have in the summer in Bristol, and there's 1 hotel. So to be able to have those weddings, you want to have some Airbnb. I think, maybe not, the town can outlaw that, it's fine. But I think that the idea of managing Airbnb, as I've read across the country, it's an issue. But that has to do with the affordability of housing stock. And the idea that when you have these Airbnb rental units going on in New York City, San Francisco, big issues. It's because they're driving up the rents. The town of Bristol, that's not the issue. Rents are being driven up here because of the college students that are living in houses where there are multiple students living in them. Not only that, I mean, I did a fair amount of walking around the town this summer. And I was surprised to learn that in Hopeworth, there'll be a house and there'll be 6 kids living in it, cars on the lawn, and really disruptive to the neighborhood. And people feel frustrated about that. I don't know how that's registered, who's paying a fee, how it's being monitored. And I think this ordinance is a great first step for Airbnb. That's not the issue in town, in my opinion. I'll attend the workshop. Thank you for listening.
Those are great points. One of the reason how this came to us, as I mentioned, Karen Binder was at a recent meeting that had to do with Explore Newport, and Newport uses a company to register Airbnbs.
Great.
Part of the motivation also was exactly what you said, is that this tends to be, not always, in fact, most of the time it's not, but the ones that are invasive and they're loud at some particular areas, but most of them actually aren't that way.
Right.
But a larger goal here was to be more inclusive, to enforce how many people live at a home. Is it correct? Is that the amount of people that are supposed to be there, right, such and so forth? So you brought up some great points.
It doesn't capture that, but it's great.
So,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is an executive session request, which I'm assuming the council will like to take up at the conclusion of the public agenda.
Yes.
Following that is L3, and this is from the solicitor regarding a possibility of joining Portsmouth in litigation against possible toll problems.
Mike, could you summarize?
Yeah, this will be really quick. So as you're aware, the Secundit River Bridge, when it was first authorized by the federal government, the funds came in. There's something called a record of decision. That record of decision allowed tolling. That, of course, all blew up. No one wants tolling. Fast forward to today. On April 2nd of this year, the same Peter Alviti that the administrator is going to meet with on Tuesday wrote a letter back to the feds saying, we want you to rescind that ROD so that there'll never be tolls there. that's great. The problem is there's a 6-year statute of limitations on this tolling, and it ends in a week. And so the town of Portsmouth, in order to be sure that there is no problem with this, filed a lawsuit. All we're asking you tonight is to give us the authority to join it. It's just a motion to join. It's very simple and straightforward. We have different issues in addition to the tolling. It's all the traffic that we don't want. So we can actually bring a little bit more light on this issue if we're allowed to join it. But all the work's already been done by Portsmouth. We're just saying we want to get added. As soon as the feds respond to the DOT letter, which should be within the next 30 days, the whole thing will get dismissed.
Okay.
But this is just in case.
So a belt and suspenders kind of approach?
Belt and suspenders,
Okay.
yes. So
What's
the
this
motion
council's-
would be to allow the solicitor to join Portsmouth's lawsuit.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
So I guess my question, Mr. Solicitor, if you can clarify a little bit, is this lawsuit on the record of decision that was made by FHWA?
Yes.
Okay.
It is.
Now, we just, the director of the Rhode Island DOT
Yes.
just asked for that to be rescinded.
Yes.
So there shouldn't be any lawsuit.
Well, the only reason, if we had 30 more days,
Yeah.
there would not be a lawsuit because we're going to hear back from the feds. The problem is, once the 6-year statute ends, you're forever foreclosed from challenging it. And if for some
okay.
strange reason
Okay.
they say no, I don't think that'll happen.
Yeah.
It's probably 99.9% that it won't. So that's why we're in a good position today. Belts and suspends. We just want to be sure.
Okay, yeah. I noticed that the director of FHWA said, we will do it if we get this letter, but you can't count on anybody.
We haven't heard back yet.
So there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And now we, excuse me, we have the individual council member agenda items beginning with the chairman.
So it's been a long meeting, so very quickly, Happy Easter, number one. Number two, sad news, a couple of pieces. Ed Tanner, an employee of the town, lost his dad, and certainly this council, the administrator, all the department heads and employees of the town send my thoughts and prayers to him and his family. We also lost Sister Sardina, and we were talking about Sister St. Dorothy, and Sister Sardina was my Aunt Teresa used to be a nun, and she put it really well. She was a spitfire. That woman could get anything done that she needed to get done. Maybe we'll bring her to DOT. That would probably be a good idea. She was just a wonderful person, and again, our thoughts and prayers go to her and her family. Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everybody that Keep Bristol Clean is coming up on Saturday, April 28th from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. So just mark it on your calendars. It will, please, you can go down to the Department of Public Works, and everybody's meeting there. It's going to kick off at 9:30. You will be able to join a captain, get your own location. But as you know, we have a beautiful town, but if we all chip in, it's going to be a great start for the spring and the summer. So happy Easter and have a great night. Thank you.
Mr. Texera.
Happy Easter, Feliz Pasqua.
Ms. Perella.
Thank you. Same. I have basically the exact three that Nathan had, and that is, so happy Easter to everyone, happy and holy Easter, and my condolences to Ed Tanner and his family, and I did want to comment on Sister Mary Sardana, who is just I would call her a force of nature.
Yeah.
A great teacher, started the camp down at Mount St. Dorothy, was a classmate of my mother's, and so you've always known her, and quite a dynamo, and everyone should enjoy life and get as much done as she did. So with that, thank you.
And Mr. Lay.
I just want to wish everybody a happy Easter. I know that I'm going to be busy. I saw Father Masello has me on the schedule to be a lector on one of those days, so I'll be going out to Warren for that. I'll be busy in the morning and busy at the night because we have rehearsal. So other than that, I just want to say, thank you to all the families. We just got done with budget a few weeks, or we're not done with the budget yet, but all the budget workshops and everything like that. And, it'll be nice to spend Easter with the family because they make such huge sacrifices so that we can do this kind of thing. They really pick it up during budget season, and so thank you to the spouses and the grandparents and the babysitters that we have to pay for as well. So.
Town administrator agenda items.
Just, happy Easter. That's all I have.
Tony, you want to?
Just happy Passover as well to our friends out there.
Right,
So
thank you.
Same time.
definitely, thank you.
Happy Good Friday.
Same time. Yeah.
Shaky.
The motion would be to adjourn to executive session convene to executive session pursuant to 4246-5A2 litigation, Town of Bristol versus Mosaico.
I need a motion, please.
Motion.
Motion? So moved. Is there a second?
So you're in trouble.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Good night, everyone.